Oh, hey, you're still here after 2 years. Well, you've definitely grown since the last time I saw you. And is that a new haircut? That's a new haircut. As you can see, I'm in a new location. And it just doesn't quite feel the same as the old place, does it? Much better. So to celebrate being alive, let's do something a little bit different today. I want to talk about one of my favourite video game franchises of all time. Skylanders. I spent the majority of my life playing these games and emptying my wallet on all the different figurines you can use, and I wouldn't have it any other way. You know what they say, you only live once, so try to spend as much time playing Skylanders as possible. But with me being such a big fan of this franchise and there being no new games on the horizon, it can be tough to find new things to do with the games to keep things fresh. And that's when it hit me. I've played all of these games so many times and I've collected all of these figurines, and yet there's one thing I've never attempted to do, but that ends today. Because today I'm doing something absolutely insane. More insane than beating every game on Nightmare Mode, and more insane than beating every game on the Wii. Although that last one did cost me a lot of my sanity. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we complete all 6 of the mainline Skylanders games to the absolute most uncontested amount of fullness humanly possible. I'm taking the word completion to its absolute maximum when I say that today we're going to attempt to 100% complete every Skylanders game. And when I say completing, I don't just mean the stuff that counts towards a 100% save file. Oh no, I mean completing every single aspect of each game as fully as possible. Whether the game acknowledges it or not, I'm still doing it. This is going to be a long video, so I should probably cut to the chase. To 100% complete these 6 games, I've broken it down into 3 simple steps. The first step is doing everything that the game considers to be 100% completion. I know this sounds pretty stupid, but it's going to make sense when you realise how many pointless tasks aren't actually recognised by the game at all. And that's what step 2 is. Completing, collecting, and just straight up doing everything in the game that is humanly possible, even though none of it contributes towards a 100% save file. And the final step is getting every trophy or achievement on an Xbox or PlayStation, and I checked, they are the exact same thing. Now if you play your Skylanders on a Nintendo console, lucky you. There are no trophies or achievements on the Wii, Wii U or Switch, so you can just sit back, relax and watch me deal with some annoying things that you will never have to worry about. So, I bet I've made all that sound nice and simple, haven't I? Well no. Just no. No time for any stupid jokes, I'm just gonna get straight to it. I'm a changed man. Actually, I guess not. First up, we have the first game, believe it or not, Spyro's Adventure. It's kinda weird to think that I've 100% completed Superchargers racing and not this game. Anyways, I was nervous before I even began this challenge because the Xbox 360 has the trophies that we need to collect, but it is significantly glitchier than the Wii version of the game. We don't really have a choice here though, so all I can do is hope none of the bugs ruin the challenge. Well, let's start with step 1, and all you have to do to get 100% on your save file is achieve 3 stars on all 22 of the main levels. That is literally it. You don't even need to have the 4 expansion pack levels for this, just a Skylander of each element for the elemental gates, and you can technically 100% complete this game. So let's look at what we need to do to get 3 stars on a level. The first star is for the objectives. This is earned simply by completing the level, so it's a guarantee every time. The second star is for completion, which is a bit of a vague and stupid name. Swap Force renames the star to Dares, which suits it much better, because that's essentially what it is. It's just adding more challenging conditions to the levels, like not losing any Skylanders, defeating a certain number of enemies, exploring every area, and the big one, the time goal. But more on that soon. And then lastly, the collection star is for collecting all the different things you can find in levels, such as chests, soul gems, story scrolls, legendary treasures, and hats, which are always found inside elemental gates. So that's all we really need to focus on now, exploring every nook and cranny of each area so we don't miss anything, being careful not to lose any Skylanders, and of course, killing every living organism we make eye contact with. So, let's get started with Shattered Islands. As the first level, you probably weren't expecting anything worth mentioning from Shattered Islands, and there pretty much isn't. It is home to one of the most iconic secrets in this series. If you fire the cannon again after getting rid of the wall, you'll destroy a house which reveals your first legendary treasure. But that's the only moderately interesting collectible here, so we move swiftly onto Perilous Pastures. Perilous Pastures is one of the strangest levels to fully complete in this game, because in order to reach the legendary treasure, there's a secret path you have to unlock which takes you to the end of the level. But if you take this path, then you can't get any of the collectibles available on the normal route. This makes Perilous Pastures one of the only 2 levels in this game where you cannot collect everything in one go. This is a very well known secret, but just in case you haven't seen it before, walk up to this little area with the flowers as a life Skylander and a massive vine sprouts out of the ground which will lead you to the legendary treasure. Now that I think about it, this secret is completely ridiculous and unfair. If I hadn't known about it for years before now, well, I would be cross. And you don't want to see me when I'm cross. Luckily this all works out because you can take the usual route on your first run, grab all the collectibles, and then on your timed run, take the secret route, get the legendary treasure, and finish the level in about 2 minutes tops. That all came together quite nicely. Wait. Pause. Did I just say timed run? Yes, I did say that, thanks for noticing. Now is a good time to talk a little bit more about the time goal. So the amount of time that you're given to complete a level is very generous and totally doable, but only if you ignore all of the secrets and optional areas. This means we need to replay every level at least twice. First to get all the collectibles, which would be the collection run, and second to beat the time goal, the timed run. I decided immediately that Stealth Elf would be my dedicated timed run Skylander, because it's Stealth Elf, I don't have to explain. Plus, now that we've rescued Callie, we have access to the 32 heroic challenges, each one unlocked for a new Skylander you put on the portal. I'm immediately going to complete all 32 of these with just Stealth Elf. The main reason is because each heroic challenge you complete gives your Skylander a small stat boost which will make the timed runs even faster and easier to shred through. Yeah, you could probably beat every single one of these levels within the time limit with any Skylander, but who doesn't love a bit of overkill? Well, I know Stealth Elf does. And in saying this, don't expect me to be covering the timed runs unless there's something interesting to mention, which to be honest, probably won't be very often. But anyways, let's talk more about the heroic challenges. I won't lie, having done all of these challenges before, completing them was a pretty boring hour and a half. If you know your way around each of the 4 maps, then the only thing you're going to struggle with is having to hear Callie say the exact same voice line 32 times.
So,
Callie,
you're
please
ready
stop.
to try a heroic challenge,
Stop, Callie.
huh?
There is another reason for doing these heroic challenges, but we don't have to worry about that until step 2, so let's head on to the 3rd level. Skyscanner Docks doesn't have anything notable other than this cheeky chest in the Earth Gate, and once again, the legendary treasure. After this gate comes down on the ship, you need to backtrack to find that another gate also came down. It at least gives you a hint since you can see the gate beforehand, but this is still a naughty secret. All 3 of these first levels showcase how sneaky the legendary treasures can be sometimes. These are definitely the collectibles you need to watch out for the most, unless they're literally sitting right in front of you. Stormy Stronghold is really easy. There's this soul gem that's locked behind a gate which you have a limited time to reach before it closes. And for some reason, I really struggled to do this as a kid, even though I managed to reach it at a walking pace with tons of time to spare. Oil Spill Island is quite an interesting level because it properly introduces us to traversable water. Yeah, I know there was that little bit in the first level, but you can access the chest through the water gate, so just shh. Both of the soul gems in this level are only accessible by Skylanders who can swim, fly, or float. But luckily there's a good chunk of them who can do this, including Gilligrunt and Spyro, which makes these areas accessible to all players. One part of the level that's not quite as accessible is these freaking pipes in the fire gate. Where did they go? Why did they make this? Did they want me to draw a map? Am I meant to be guessing? Because I'm guessing as hard as I can and it's not working. Honestly, this is a horrible gate. The second worst in the whole game. Just to make it worse, even if you find the hat, you're still trapped in this hell maze until you find the legendary treasure. You can't just leave if you get stuck. This is so evil. Trust me, it's much quicker and less painful to just watch a guide online because this took so much longer than I expected. Darkwater Cove has some of the best hidden secrets so far, and for the first time I actually missed something. But this is a great time to mention a neat little trick we can use in this situation. If you go through again and manage to find the collectible, you actually don't have to finish the level. As soon as you find the last collectible, just head back to the hub world and look at that. Very convenient. Of course, if you're feeling risky, you could also try and grab the collectible during your timed run. If you're using a moderately fast Skylander and the collectible doesn't take long to reach, then this is definitely doable in most cases. Leviathan Lagoon went pretty smoothly, as is the case for every level so far. Don't expect some crazy twists or anything, this is a very easy game. But it does have a pretty fun secret, that being the Leviathan. It swallows you up if you stay in the water for too long, but this leads you to the legendary treasure hidden inside of it. For some reason that isn't explained, the legendary treasure is only obtainable after the level's turret section. The treasure simply won't be there if you get swallowed before then. But fortunately there is no limit to the amount of times you can get swallowed, so if you're into that kind of stuff, go wild. This level is also home to our first boss fight, and the only thing that makes any of these chaos battles slightly interesting is the achievement that each of them come with. But of course, I'll save those for later. This fight is not hard in the slightest, but while I'm here I should mention that if you do die in any of these fights and you restart the level, it'll take you back to the beginning of the fight, rather than having to replay the entire chapter. This will be important later. Crystal Eye Castle. What to say about Crystal Eye Castle? Well, I hate this stupid Cyclops teddy that's hiding in a wheelbarrow. Like, what the hell are you doing in there? Seriously, tell me. Stone Town is probably my favourite level in this game. That has no relevance to the challenge, I just wanted to share. Anyway, we have some tricky collectibles to find, like this chest in the life gate, or the random ass lightning rod soul gem that's hiding in a tent. You know what, lightning rod kinda does look like he'd live in a tent. As for Treetop Terrace, there is literally not a single thing to mention about this level. Not that it's boring or anything, but I didn't have any trouble finding anything. The same can be said for Falling Forest, but at least this level has 2 achievements that give it a little bit more challenge. No, you'll have to wait to find out, stop moaning. Well, now that we've gotten 3 stars on 11 of the 22 levels, surely we've officially reached 50%. Why? Troll Warehouse is the second level where you can't collect everything in one go, and it's all because of this life gate, which is a maze full of locked gates with limited keys available. There are 3 different collectibles in this gate. You know there's a whole level you can put these in, right? And no matter how optimal your route is, there are simply not enough keys to be able to grab the legendary treasure, the hat and the chest in one run. But luckily I was able to get the chest on my timed run and still finish with a couple of minutes to spare. Goo Factory is a level. Next up we have more monotonous bomb rolling with Battlefield. Even though I used this can to blow up a building, revealing the legendary treasure, it was only at the end of the level when I realised I never actually went to that area. Another level that Stealth have had to clean up in the timed run. Crawling Catacombs is one of the hardest levels in the game in terms of collectibles, mainly because of its maze-like design and narrow corridors. Add that to the section where everything is super dark and I wouldn't blame you for missing a thing or two. Luckily, because it's been such a pain in the past, I've subconsciously memorised this entire level, so no problems there. Cadaverous Crypt is another level with nothing noteworthy, so we head on to Creepy Citadel, which is one of the weirdest levels in the game. And that's because if you jump down to this whirlpool, you're transported to a different area. Like a secret area? Nope. It literally takes you forward 30 seconds into the level, and you get absolutely nothing for doing it. But that's not even the weird part, because if you take this bizarre shortcut, you'll find out at the end of the level that you did not get the first star. And that's because the game doesn't think you entered the castle for some reason, and that was the first objective. To my knowledge, this is the only level in which this is possible without doing glitches. It's weird, it's dumb, but it's also kinda cool and funny. Obviously we went through the normal way in the timed run and got the first star. The boss fight is hell. It's one of the hardest parts of the game, not that that really means anything, but still. The undead minions are the most aggressive by far, and all 3 of them out at the same time can be a real pain, especially if you're not using a safe Skylander like Drobot. Unfortunately, if you die and restart the boss fight, you still fail the no lives lost goal, which is quite unfair. And of course, the boss only gets harder with the aid of his evil little achievement sidekick who makes everything worse. Luckily, I can spare myself the pain of talking about that for a while longer. Molten Mine is up next, and before you play this level, please make life easy for yourself and play as Prison Break. Not only can you destroy the rocks very easily, but also the crystals, which are normally only broken with bombs or cannons. Prison Break can skip entire crystal block puzzles, which is an absolute godsend. They're not very fun, I'll say that much. Because of the heroic challenges, the layout of this level is ingrained into my skull, so finding everything wasn't too tricky. I was surprised by this well-hidden chest next to the water, which I had no memory of at all, but that was the only thing that stuck out to me. So now all that's left to do is the timed run. Wait, what? So I've not had to bring up the enemy goal at all so far, because it's easy. Just defeat every enemy you see, and as long as you visit every area in the level, nothing can go wrong. But this level, being the cheeky chapter that it is, only gives you the enemy goal if you stop and let the Lava Kings spawn imps for you to defeat. Maybe this wasn't intentional, but it's not cool, and the game never actually showing you what the enemy goal is doesn't help either. Lava Lakes Railway, where half of the level is in Molten Mine instead of the lava lakes. This is one of the weakest levels in the game, but luckily I got everything first try, including the enemy goal, thank god. The boss definitely isn't easy, but it's not on the same level as the undead one, so you'll probably be fine there. And now we've reached the home stretch, only 3 more levels to go, starting with Quicksilver Vault. And this level is the only one that faces us with a genuine issue. The enemy goal strikes again. Molten Mine was a little bit frustrating, but at least there were enemy spawners in that level. There are none of those here, so I ran out of ideas quite fast. It turns out that a lot of other people have had the same problem, and the solution they've come up with is a bit unorthodox. Essentially, we have to kill a bunch of children. It was worth it. It was worth it. It was worth it. Oh, you meant in the game! For once, Sonic Boom's carelessness for our babies is gonna come in handy, because these little fellas count as enemies when they die, and they're our ticket to getting out of this mess. Since they don't actually give you the number of enemies you're meant to kill, I suggest sacrificing a few of them every time you get into a big fight just to be safe. If you do this, you'll be good as gold. Or silver, I guess. I managed to get the enemy goal and finished by the time goal with only seconds to spare. Thank you, brave children. They'll sing songs about you when this is all over. Arcane Armory is next, and this level is a lot simpler than I remember. In fact, it literally only has 2 areas with the Arcane Concretron section taking up most of the level. Like, way too much of it. What the hell, it completely ruins the entire level. This is so boring. The last area is filled with collectibles, so make sure you explore every corner, including the rocket area at the bottom. Interestingly, the legendary treasure requires one of the 4 earth Skylanders that can destroy rocks, and this is the only time the game uses these as an obstacle without being able to use the pickaxe. So anyways, we grab everything along with the eternal magic source, and I couldn't believe it. For the first time in the entire game, I got all 3 stars on a level in one go. And I wasn't even trying to. Now all that stands in our way from getting that sweet 100% save file is the final level. The Lair of Chaos isn't a very hard level. This would be anticlimactic, but Spyro's Adventure is the easiest game on the planet, so I guess it makes sense. The collectibles aren't really hidden either. Instead, the level forces you to pick between one collectible and the other, and the one you don't pick becomes blocked off. This would mean we have another level where we have to play twice to get every collectible, if it weren't for the fact that using a second player allows you to grab both rewards. Not that it really matters though, since we'll be going through again for the time zone anyway. So after some trivial combat, it is finally time for chaos. The main idea of this boss is combining all of the minions and elemental attacks that we've dealt with in the past and putting them all together. Sometimes the combinations are super easy, but a lot of the time it can be overwhelming, especially if you're not using one of your best Skylanders. This would be a fun and challenging fight to finish the game off, if it weren't for how obnoxiously long it takes. On my first run of the level, this final boss took me 20 minutes to beat, I am not even kidding. The amount of time that's spent dodging the same attack patterns over and over, or watching the same Hydra animation again and again, or constantly listening to chaos, it really drags things out to an unnecessary length. I also lost 2 Skylanders during the fight, which made me realise the biggest problem was not losing any lives. But on my timed run with Stealth Elf, I remembered I have Stealth Elf. With all the stat boosts from heroic challenges, plus some cute bunny ears that make her even more powerful, I absolutely breezed through the fight with no deaths and it only taking 8 minutes this time. Imagine using the most powerful and broken Skylander in the entire game and it still takes 8 minutes. Well, that's step 1 officially complete. All 3 stars in all 22 levels, and look at that beautiful save file. But of course, we aren't done just yet. Before we do anything else, we obviously still have 4 expansion pack levels to beat. These aren't the same as the main levels with the same 3-star system and list of things to do and collect, so let's get straight into it, starting with the Empire of Ice. This level really doesn't have much going on, so I thought I would take this time to quickly rant about these 4 levels. They'll have some sort of annoying filler content added in which makes them unbearably slow to play through. Empire of Ice has the infamous wall boss fight, Dragon's Peak has the dragon sections, and worst of all is Pirate Seas, which is not only filled with horrible memory games which you're forced to play and take absolutely ages, but also a stupid pirate ship section which is boring as hell. Darklight Crypt is the one exception, but it also has a 3-minute unskippable cutscene at the start of the level, so it's not exactly innocent here. Actually, something weird did happen in Empire of Ice, and it was once again the enemy goal. Not sure if this is another glitch, or if I just missed enemies somewhere, so I just killed some more children and that was that. When it isn't boring me to death with its awful filler content, Pirate Seas is actually a pretty cool level with a nice little town to explore. There's a soul gem hiding over here, a random turret section which awards you with the legendary treasure, and a chest and hat for bouncing over here. It took me a couple tries to master. There's also a chest in the water, which was a pleasant surprise. It's a simple concept, but I really do like the water mechanics in this game, and it sucks it didn't bring it back in the future. Darklight Crypt is a long ass level. I mean, the time goal is 17 minutes, that says it all. But it's not actually very challenging. The one secret that might catch you off is the hat that becomes available only after defeating the boss at the end. Wait, a hat that isn't a gate? Wait, it's only just registering in my brain that all 4 of these levels have this. Did they just give up with the elemental gates for these last 4 hats? Well, it saves me time, so I won't complain for too long. Lastly, we have Dragon's Peak, the best of the 4 by a decent amount. On my first playthrough, I missed the legendary treasure and I didn't reach the enemy goal. Now, I'm 99% certain that the enemy goal isn't bugged, and I only failed it because the secret area I missed, which is probably the most ridiculously well hidden thing in the game by the way, features some enemies. But because I'm too lazy to play the level and go through all the secret areas again, I just farmed a bunch of chompies at the beginning of the level. And there you have it, the last level completed with 3 stars. We are done. Boom, all 78 chests, 26 story scrolls, 26 legendary treasures, 32 soul gems, and 45 hats acquired, bumping our total stars up to 78. Now there's only really 2 things left for us to do here. Accolades and Winged Sapphires. The accolades are basically like the Game Zone achievement system, which, trust me, we're gonna get used to down the line. The 19 accolades in this game are pretty straightforward, and I've grouped them into a few different types for maximum simplicity. We have the first row of accolades that you achieve by increasing your collection, eventually requiring all 32 Spyro's Adventure Skylanders. Fortunately, if you don't have all 32 of the original cast, Series 2s, Series 3s, Light Cores, Eon's Elites, any version of an OG Skylander can be put on the portal as if it were a Series 1. The only exception is the revamps and Superchargers, but hopefully all of that can potentially fill out your collection if it gets that desperate. If you're still out of luck however, the vast majority of this roster are pretty easy to find and cheap to buy nowadays, especially with all the different figurines they've had over the years. Apart from, you know, him. The only annoying thing that I had to deal with was that you have to take ownership of a Skylander if they're coming from a different game or console. You can only take ownership manually, and I had to do this with every single one of them. This is also required to unlock every Skylanders Heroic Challenge, just in case you've been wondering all this time. But after all that's done, you'll get the first row of accolades, and also a nice full table of all their characters, which also shows you what Skylanders you have the soul gems for, which is also pretty handy. The next 8 accolades are given to you for collecting every story scroll, treasure chest, soul gem and hat in the game, which is nice because we've obviously already done this, no extra work needed. And if you were wondering, yes, this includes all the thingamabobs from the expansion pack levels, so if you want these accolades, then you can't ignore these levels, as painfully mediocre as they are overall. The next accolade is for completing every heroic challenge as one Skylander, which we did at the beginning. And lastly, we get 2 accolades for beating every level with 3 stars, and to finish it off, a big fat accolade for getting every other accolade in the game. I said a big fat accolade for getting every other accolade in the game. Hello? Where's my big fat accolade? Well, I guess this is a pretty redundant piece of thing anyway. As you can see, I have every accolade, I don't need your approval. But in case you're wondering, this is what the list of accolades should actually look like. As you can see, this is taken from the Wii version because it's just better. I hate you, box. Last thing to grab are the Winged Sapphires. 10 of them in total that are all scattered across the hub world, and they are definitely the best hidden collectibles in the game. Well, most of them. You can only access certain Winged Sapphires when you beat certain levels, but after beating the game, you'll definitely have access to all 10. Okay, if you haven't gotten all 10 of them, here's your chance to boot up the game and try and grab them all before I tell you where they all are. Here we go, 3, 2, 1. There's one beside Persephone, one at the beach, one next to the train tracks, one under this rock. You also get one for oiling this little robot guy, also oiling the train. You get one for blowing this wall up and blowing this hole up. You also get one all the way up here, and lastly you get this one from the puzzle log game. So that's almost every accolade collected, and all the Winged Sapphires grabbed, so all that's left now is step 3. But just before we move on, there's one more thing I wanted to investigate, and it's to do with the hats. Now the game tells us that we've collected every hat once we get this accolade, but if we look at the hat selection menu, we are clearly still missing 4 of them. You see, for whatever reason, the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, Wii, PC and 3DS versions of Spyro's Adventure each have one unique hat that can't be collected in the other versions. At first I was scared that I wouldn't be able to get all of these hats because while I have the 3DS and Wii versions, I don't have the PC version and I don't even have a PlayStation 3 to begin with. Luckily you can get all of these hats in the other games regardless of which version you're playing on. So let's fast forward time to when I get all the hats in Giants, equip the 4 hats that I'm missing, and go back to the present and place all the Skylanders down. So I did that, and it didn't work. I placed them all down and even made sure I had ownership of them all in case that did anything, but alas, these 4 hats remain hidden on the menu. I'm gonna simply put this on the game being buggy. Not only did exclusive hats show up in this version of the game, but in the other versions you can transfer them just fine. But no, not for me, not if XSpec has anything to say about it, and they do. Really, I'm not too bothered by it though, I know that they should be there, I've done everything I can. And as unsatisfying and horrible to look at as it is, I still think I've done a good job with the game so far, and hopefully we can keep that going with step 3. For this step we have a total of 38 achievements to tackle. Now even if you were ignoring achievements, 11 of the 38 are simply achieved by playing through the story and cannot be avoided. So if you're planning on an achievementless run, I have very bad news for you. You have 5 days to live. If we also add on all the extra work we did by completing step 1 and step 2, then we actually only have 16 left to do, and some of them are still so easy that you probably got them by accident. So to save time, I'll only go over the ones that are obscure or that I found fun or challenging. Firstly, there are a couple that you just naturally wouldn't think of doing, starting with Leviathan Dentist. This requires you to get swallowed by the Leviathan 5 times in one playthrough of Leviathan Lagoon. It's not difficult, it serves no purpose, it's weird and stupid, I love it. Another weird one is beating all of Falling Forest without firing a single rocket. Now I'll be honest, playing through the level I had absolutely no idea what to do. I tried climbing up the chainsaws while they were still active, but it just wouldn't let me. I found a little trick however, where if you restart the Chaos fight after dying and then beat the level, the game forgets that you used the rockets, so you can easily pick up the achievement using that. Next is an achievement for destroying every single rock in Molten Mine, crystals not included. I actually struggled with this one until I finally remembered that area of the treasure chest which had one measly rock blocking the way. I'm also glad I remembered about the sneaky rocks hidden in the tech gate because I probably would have never thought to look in there. If you find yourself struggling, remember that the achievement will immediately pop up as soon as you break the last rock, not when you beat the level. So just keep looking around and you'll get it eventually. Well, I think I've stalled enough. It's time to talk about the dreaded Chaos Fight achievements, one for each of the 5 encounters. The water fight is actually pretty easy. You have to dodge 30 Doom Sharks in a row without getting hit. And when I say dodge, I don't just mean avoid, I mean being so close to the shark that you gain health from it. This could have definitely been a tough challenge if it weren't for the shark formation in the second wave, which is literally just a straight line begging for some easy dodges. Take advantage of this and you'll grab the achievement easy peasy. The life fight is far more specific and does require a proper strategy. You have to defeat the evil Stump Smash while at least 5 seeds are rolling around in the arena. The easiest way to beat this that I found is to get him really low on health and simply finish him off after he's picked up enough seeds. It isn't easy though, getting hit by the acorns make them disappear, not to mention accidentally destroying them with the attacks, so just be patient and careful with this one. Next up is the worst one for sure. I've already been open about the undead fight being tough, but this adds a whole new layer to that. You have to get through the whole thing without being hit by a single laser. The laser sections have a couple of patterns that you pretty much need to memorise in order to get through safely, but that's not the problem here. The problem is the final part of the fight where all 3 minions attack you at once and soon enough lasers get thrown into the mix. With some attacks pushing you back, it's almost impossible to guarantee safety from the lasers when the minions are there, so you need to chip away at their health as quickly as possible before it becomes nearly unbeatable. Definitely go for Chop Chop first and deal with the others soon after, and pray to Glumshanks you manage to get through in one piece. Good luck, that's all I can say really. The fire achievement is pretty goofy to be honest. You need to defeat all of the minions using only Gilgrunt's secondary move. All I can say is if you have a Gilgrunt on the hose path, now is the time to use them. I do not, because I'm not a crazy person. I won't sugarcoat it, the only reason I managed to get this achievement is because I had an army of 4 Gilgrunts, and even then I lost them all in the first attempt. But after getting used to the minions' attack patterns, I started to do a bit better. And for the last boss achievement, we simply need to beat the final fight without switching Skylander. And I already showed how I did this earlier, so not much point basking in Stealth Elf's glory more than we already have. There is only one more achievement that I feel is worth talking about, and it's one that should be an absolute breeze to unlock, but ended up nearly costing me everything, and I wish that was an over-exaggeration. The request is simple. Unlock every upgrade with 1 Skylander. But this single achievement has caused Skylander fans so much pain it may as well be a torture method. For reasons that I won't even try to explain, if you place down a Skylander that comes from a different game, this achievement goes into self-destruct mode and becomes completely impossible to unlock for that player, regardless of the save file. Several different methods have been shared, but none of them worked. I was on the brink of total and utter defeat when I finally found one last trick that could save me from this nightmare, and it was a little bit odd to say the least. The first thing you have to do is banish your save file to the flaming pits of hell. Or just copy it onto a USB, that's probably the better option. Either way, you need to play on a fresh, reset game. Next, play through the game until you reach Persephone and purchase the Skylander's final upgrade, which for some reason cannot be their soul gem. I don't know why, stop asking me questions, I'm not smart. And good god, it actually worked. Now just pop the USB back in and put all the save data back and there you go. I want to give a massive shout out to Achievement Tips 360 for blessing me and several others with this trick. Even though they probably won't see this because they haven't posted a video in over a decade, but that's not my problem. Okay, everything I can possibly do in this game has been done, and overall this is only scratching the surface of what the later games are going to have in store for us. Spyro's Adventure was definitely our warm-up game, and while some of the achievements were annoying, overall fully completing this game was a pretty by-the-books experience. It was still a good time though, and its simplicity made it stress-free for the most part. Let's waste no more time and really start the challenge with Skylanders Giants. Giants is going to be a massive step up in difficulty for a few reasons. Firstly, with more explorative and open level designs, the collectibles are hidden way better than Spyro's Adventure, and there are also more things to collect in general. Also, despite having less levels, there is much more content to complete, including arena battles, more heroic challenges, more accolades, and the Sky Stones. Oh god, the Sky Stones. But I've saved the most important change for last, and that is the Nightmare mode, which is of course the bonus difficulty unlocked after you beat the game, which increases enemy health, damage and aggressiveness in general. And we have to 100% complete the game on this difficulty. The only reason we have to do this is because of one pathetic, hat. For beating giants in Nightmare mode, we get a hat and an achievement. Now the achievement is no problem. If it was just the achievement, we could 100% the game on one of the other difficulties and then play through Nightmare mode in a separate save file. But no, the hat you get for beating Nightmare mode specifically cannot be transferred over to your normal save file. If you wear the hat and then switch over to a different save file, the hat will be on the Skylanders head, but it won't appear in your hat collection. So because of that, we have to do all of this already challenging stuff on the Nightmare mode that caused me the most deaths out of every game last time I played it. Yippee! To get an 100% save file, you still only have to get 3 stars on every level, and the 3 stars remain pretty much the same. There's still the time goal, enemy goal, no deaths goal, and so on. But for the collectibles, we have some changes. Each level now has a winged sapphire instead of being exclusive to the hub world. Despite that, there are still some lying around the dread yacht too, but we'll talk about those later. The legendary treasures are back, but now they are ship parts which you can use to customize the dread yacht. I always thought this was a really cool feature. And a collectible that's new to Giants is the Lucky Wheels. These can be put into a machine to give your Skylanders certain buffs, like more damage or increased XP gain. There's one in each level and they come in 4 different types, but the only wheels that I feel are essential are the ones that increase the amount of money you collect, because heads up, you're going to be spending so much money buying hats, charms and sky stones that you'll have nightmares about Auric for the rest of your life. With step 2 we have a good bit more to do this time. The accolades have returned with 23 of them to get this time, and they are a bit more demanding. There's still the easy ones that we'll get just by completing step 1, but there are some that some players might struggle with. We also have 21 different arena challenges to tackle and 8 charms, 85 hats and 80 sky stones to collect. And of course we'll have the achievements to do in step 3. But with all that covered, let's get started. Of course, the first thing to do is beat the game to unlock Nightmare mode in the first place, and I just blazed through everything on easy mode with Stealth Elf, nothing to talk about there. Now the actual challenge begins. Time of the Giants is our intro level, and its main purpose is to showcase all the cool things that the Giants can do. This includes picking up and throwing boulders or other obstacles, smashing through the ground to reveal secrets, breaking walls that normally require a bomb, and lastly, completing feats of strength scattered throughout the game. Now with that stuff aside, I did not expect it to be such a brutal hidden collectible in the first level, but the Lucky Wheel is ridiculously cryptic. The cycle repeats itself, I suppose. You need to lift this boulder to go through this little passage to re-enter the Chompy Pit, but then you have to do that again and beat the Chompy Pit for a 3rd time, and only then will the wheel appear in front of you. What the hell is this secret? This seems like the kind of thing that the developers would put in as a silly little Easter egg for players to discover, not for an actual collectible that is required for 3 stars. There is really no possible way that you could figure this out just by playing through the game, unless you read the story scroll in the next level. A really cool detail of the story scrolls in Giants is that each one gives you a hint to a secret in a different level, but I was definitely too dumb to even realise this when I was a kid. I probably couldn't even read by then. Well, after we grabbed this lucky wheel, there was nothing left to stop us and the time run was a breeze, so I got my first 3-star level. Now we move on to Junkyard Isles. My main advice for this level, and for all levels I guess, is to check around the edges for secret drops. These happen quite frequently and I very nearly missed both of the elemental gates because of this, but just when I thought I'd gotten through all the level's tricks, it turns out that there's a Locotron wheel hidden in this windmill that I did not find. But because the wheel's at the very end of the level and it doesn't take long to get, I just grabbed it on my timed run. On the topic of missing collectibles, just like in Spyro's Adventure, as soon as you collect something it's automatically ticked off the list, meaning we actually don't have to beat the rest of the level past that point, but it's definitely still best to try and be as thorough as possible on your first run to save you the time. How could I forget that we also get reunited with Auric in this level, everyone's favourite monocle wearing NPC. I can't really think of any other monocle wearing NPCs, but you get the point. You'll find Auric in his little corner of the dread yacht where you can buy sky stones, hats and other weird trinkets from him. From now on you'll also find him hidden in every level where he'll have exclusive items for you to buy, so it's important that you keep a lookout for him for the rest of the playthrough. Now that we're on the dread yacht we have access to the heroic challenges, and yes, just like last time there's an accolade for beating 32 of them with a single Skylander. That's kinda dumb since we've already completed the 32 challenges from the first game of Stealth Elf, so as soon as we take ownership over, we immediately get this accolade. However, if you haven't completed the heroic challenges in Spyro's Adventure, I suggest you do so, because in this game you can only access the older heroic challenges with the Series 2 Skylanders. Compare it to Spyro's Adventure where you can use any version of the Skylander to unlock the challenge, and it's obvious which one makes more sense. Unless you actually want to buy all 24 reposes, which I'm guessing you don't. So yeah, we don't have to do any of the 18 new challenges. But I'll do the 18 new challenges anyway. Yes, you heard me right. 18 new ones. Sounds weird considering there's 16 new characters in Giants, and it is. For some reason Cinder and Zook have new challenges in this game and I don't really know why. Also, I'm 99% sure that Chop Chop has a different one too, but it doesn't count for some reason. But hey, that rounds it up to a nice 50 challenges. Now this was actually my first ever time doing these challenges in Giants, and they're pretty good. They still have the same charm as the ones in Spyro's Adventure, but the gameplay feels much more varied, which is a big plus. And of course, just like before, each challenge gives you a small stat boost, and with all 50 done, my Stealth Elf is officially named Steroid Elf. The amount of damage this green specimen does is actually terrifying. Rumble Town is up, and on Nightmare mode you'll immediately notice this game is not messing around. Something that always annoyed me is that this level has 2 life gates. What makes this even more unnecessary is that the first life gate is half the size of the whole level. You'll find a good few of these big elemental gates in the game, and of course with their size they're stuffed full of collectibles. Simply put, if you come out of one of these with just a hat, you've definitely done something wrong. Also, always ready for an ambush to trigger, and just hope and pray that it isn't too difficult, because these range from totally manageable to basically impossible on Nightmare mode. But we got through the gate with a bunch of goodies collected along the way. Near the end of the level we talked to Auric, who sells us our first charm. There are 8 of these to collect and each one gives you a different helpful power up. We got quite lucky with this one because it's only 400 gold, but later on these are going to drain me of all my hard earned cash, so just make sure you're saving up as much gold as possible for when the time comes. Just when I thought I'd bested all of the secrets, it turns out that I missed one at the beginning of the level. I was scared to try and get this collectible in the timed run, but I figured it wasn't far out of the way so it wouldn't take up too much time. Well, that aged like milk. In hindsight, I should have just grabbed the collectible and restarted the level, especially since the secret was right at the beginning. But the third time through I slashed through all the draw and got 3 stars. It wasn't very graceful, but Rumble Town is done. Cutthroat Carnival is a pretty fun level. It introduces us to a very important aspect of this game's completion, the Skystones. So you might be wondering, how is a quick little board game such a big deal? Well, every time you beat an NPC they reward you with a Skystone, which of course you can add to your deck and use. Only problem is there are 80 of these to collect. Well, technically there's 81, but one of them can only be used by NPCs for some reason. Anyways, that's a lot. There are a few you can buy from Auric in each level, and also some on the Dread Yacht, but heads up, you're going to be playing a lot of Skystones throughout the rest of the game. Every level in the game besides the first one has at least one secret NPC that you can play Skystones with, and each one has a unique Skystone to give you when you beat them. This is where it gets kind of confusing though. You see, you have the option to give the NPC a rematch as many times as you want, and sometimes they'll even reward you with more Skystones like my buddy Smoldergeist did. He really just kept giving me more and more and more. And if you get money as a reward, that would imply that they have no more Skystones to give you, but get this. I played him again and he gave me another Skystone. But then some other NPCs will only give you 1 stone and then have none left. I'm not going to pretend like I know how any of this works. It might be more of a randomised thing, but still I suggest finding every NPC and playing them at least a few times each. If they give you money, then just leave. You can always come back to the level and play them again later. Okay, Skystone segment over. For now. In terms of difficulty, this is one of the easier levels. As long as you're using a fast Skylander, the executioners won't give you any hassle. I also collected everything in one go and beat the time goal with ages to spare. We're back, baby. Glacier Gully is one of the shortest and overall easiest levels in the game in terms of secrets and combat. Just like before, use the right Skylander and the executioners will give you no trouble. Apart from that, there isn't much to mention really. The time goal was easy as well, so we dust this level off without any hassle. The Secret Vault of Secrets brings back the Archaean Conquertron sections. Yay! But don't worry, because Giants does it way better than Spyro's Adventure. You can pretty much say that for every aspect of the game at this point. This level has the most ridiculous and jarring difficulty spike that only something like the Chompy Mage fight and Trap Team can hold a candle to. The new and improved Archaean Jousters and the Archaean Shield Juggernauts are truly quite scary, especially paired up with the Bark Demons, and it's not helped by the tight spaces that these fights take place in either. I almost fully relied on the Archaean Bombers to get through this level, so let's give a shout out to them. They're better at defeating enemies than I could ever be. But never mind that, because now we're in Willikin Village, everyone's favourite slightly creepy level with puppets and ghost children. There's a couple of secrets to look out for, specifically this boulder which reveals a secret hole when picked up. Luckily I found everything first go and Chompy Mage didn't pose much of a threat either. Hang on, this is going way too well, something's not right. Oh, there we go, that's better. The enemy goal is officially back in the building. It's not as bad as it seems though. All we need to do to beat the enemy goal is defeat more of the Chompies during the boss fight, which of course isn't a problem. And I'd also like to thank Giants for actually telling us what the enemy goal is. It's honestly pretty stupid that it wasn't like this from the start. Trollholm Security is already quite a scary level, but add on this god-awful Gilgrunt ambush and death is almost guaranteed. So after beating the level with a couple of casualties, we head back in. But everything happens for a reason, because we had a missing treasure chest to find anyway. Because this area took me a while to find, I played it safe and just decided to restart the level so that I wasn't compromising the time goal. See? I'm learning. Ah, Chaos's Castle. This is the creme de la creme of giants. Of course, my love for this level didn't stop me from dying in the most embarrassing way I could possibly imagine, but I've been humiliated before, this I can handle. I wasn't super delighted about having to combine the no death goal with the time goal, because typically rushing and playing carefully don't really mix. There were some close moments, but Spyro managed to hold on until the end. The legendary treasure we find in this level is the Dragon Engine. Why the hell am I telling you this? Because for whatever reason they decided to make this ship part very special, because when you equip it, you can now access Hatterson's shop. Can you guess what Hatterson sells? It's meth. Bizarre method of finding him aside, we're gonna need every single hat this guy sells us, and my god, this must be what real life is like. I love being broke, I love Hatterson, and I love paying 2,500 gold for a hat I'm never gonna wear. Aerial Attack has some pretty brutal fights, and I lost a ton of Skylanders on my collection run. Surely we'll have no trouble using Steroid Elf, right? Anyways, this level has 2 elemental gates, and both of them feature not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 collectibles each. The gates are more of a level than the actual level is, and I mean it. This level is a total nothing burger with only a couple of secret areas that aren't difficult to find. One thing you should be careful of is the Winged Sapphire, because if you move an inch in the wrong direction, you immediately jump onto this platform and move up to the next area. As long as you immediately go to the right here, you should be fine. So now, just like Chaos's Castle, we need to do a timed run where we also have to not die, and this was a bit trickier than I anticipated. There are some ridiculously strong enemies that will kill you with one mistake, and that doesn't exactly work well when the time goal is another problem we have. I got really close to the end of the level, and after dying in Stealth Elf, I just missed the time goal by 10 seconds. Who knows, maybe Steroid Elf is no match for the later levels in this game, but I'm not ready to give up yet. I swapped out my lucky wheels to power and health, put on a good hat, and went back in for attempt 2, and thankfully this time I got through much faster with less struggle, especially since I realised the final fight ends as soon as you destroy the cannon, so a lot of the enemies can just be avoided. Drillex's Big Rig is up next, and I really love this level. I love the theme and the unique level design and the secrets, which are hidden pretty well, but obviously nothing I can't handle. Near the end of the level I found Auric, and he had a charm which increases damage to large enemies, which will be extremely helpful for future levels. Only problem is it costs 25,000 gold. If you don't have any old Skylanders that have collected a ton of gold over the years, then this is an impossible amount of gold to make naturally. Luckily there are 2 pretty good money making methods that you can use. Firstly, the Sky Diamond and Swap Force. If you place down the Sky Diamond and beat the life out of the training dummies, you can make a good amount of gold, especially if you use 2 players at once, which basically doubles the amount of diamonds that you make. After the Sky Diamond runs out, simply go into any type of level and return to Woodburrow and repeat the process. I decided to use the second and superior method though, that being Soda Springs Chomp Chest. This trick gets you 3,000 gold in less than a minute, and it's really quick to repeat. Even though I really quickly reached 25,000 gold, I decided to keep going until I reached the gold limit, because you actually get a trophy for having 65,000 gold on a Skylander. And for some reason it didn't work. Please tell me this isn't Spyro's Adventure all over again. I guess we'll come back to that one later. Anyway, back to the level. Now that my Steroid Elf is stacking fat Benjamins, I went back to Auric on the timed run and got the charm. And just when I thought I'd tackled our only problem with this level, I realised that the time goal is very, very strict. In reality, this level is very short. It's actually Drillex himself that takes up most of your time, and that's what I was struggling with. Stealth Elf gets through the main level really quickly along with the first 2 phases of Drillex, but I think she might be holding us back on the final phase. Because Drobot is able to damage the drill parts while avoiding the lasers, I decided to give him a go. And it worked. I played pretty much flawlessly with Stealth Elf, which gave me plenty of time to finish Drillex off with Drobot. I'm very glad this plan worked, because if it didn't, I would have absolutely no clue what to do. Molten Mountain is pretty easy. The secrets aren't blatantly obvious, but if you check every nook and cranny, you shouldn't have too much of a problem. The soul gem at the end is pretty unfair unless you already know what you're supposed to do, which would be to push this block down with you. But apart from that, just survive the Bladesboro spam and you're finished. Now all that's left to do is the timed run, and since I've already found every collectible, I should be able to speed through this just fine. Well, bearing in mind that I'm using a max level Blade Path Stealth Elf with all 50 heroic challenge stat boosts, either Giants went a bit too extreme with these time requirements, or I am just genuinely terrible at video games. I did get it second try though. I avoided more enemies and played more precisely overall. I also swapped into Tree Rex to break this wall, which definitely helped me out. But man, the time goals have not been kind to me so far. I am terrified of how strict the final levels could be. Next up is the Oracle, a particularly annoying level for our challenge. This level is essentially a ton of mini levels with a certain theme tied to each of them. Each time you're presented with 2 different options and you pick the one that you prefer to do. The only problem is you can only pick one of the 2 options each time you play through, which means you'll have to replay the level to get the collectibles in the areas you didn't get to play. And this isn't just a play it one extra time situation like Perilous Pastures, no. In the simplest way possible, let's walk through how many times you have to play this level. So when you beat one of the trials, you go back to the main room with 2 new trials in front of you. So let's think about it as each time you complete one of the mini levels, you're taken to a new room. So room 1 leads directly to room 2. So no matter whether you pick chompies or spiders, you'll still go to the same next room. But then room 2 splits into 3A and 3B. These rooms then go to 4A and 4B, and finally they come back together for room 5. The most annoying part is that some trials don't even have a collectible in them, but you still have to go through it because it counts as an area. This means the absolute minimum number of times you can play through this level is 4, but that's if you somehow manage to get the time goal, which is probably impossible without ignoring secrets, so let's bump that number up to 5. Luckily, most of the collectibles are just lying there in plain sight, which I'm not going to complain about this time. I genuinely hope I never have to play this level again in my life. It's not even all that fun to make up for how repetitive it is. Well, we've reached the end game. Here are the last 3 infamously hard levels in the story, starting with Auto Gyro Adventure. A good chunk of the level takes place in this Archean jet with various landing spots to stop at, find secrets, solve puzzles, get killed, etc. Some of these landing spots are required to get through the level, but a few of them are optional and contain a lot of the level's collectibles, so make sure you don't miss any of them. The ones that you can land on have a glowing effect, which makes them easier to spot. The secrets in this level are pretty straightforward and don't have too much to mention, apart from Auric, who has a very important charm for us that increases damage against Archean enemies. This one is a must-have, and for some reason is a third of the price of the charm in Drillex's big rig. Well anyways, the only issues I had with this level were of course beating the level in time and also not dying. This is what I'm up against. After my first timed run attempt, I realised how difficult it would be to try and beat the time goal whilst also being extra careful not to die. So I finally have to introduce the no deaths run so that I can actually take my time in big fights. It was also during this no deaths run that I realised how many enemies can just be avoided. So with this new valuable knowledge, along with some patience and maybe a tiny bit of luck, I got through the whole level with only Steroid Elf. And after a couple of attempts, I beat the time goal as well. Unfortunately, Auto Gyro Adventure was just a teaser for what's coming up next. Let's move on to the Lost City of Arcus. Well, I say that, but I feel like this level is slightly easier than Auto Gyro Adventure, simply because the fight areas are a bit more spacious. But don't be fooled, this is also a very hard level that caused me several deaths, mainly from this god-awful fire gate ambush. This is probably the hardest fight in the entire game, I won't lie to you.
Did that attack just do 740 damage?
I don't want to talk about it. Anyways, I feel like the collectibles have been overshadowed by the fights, but this level has some pretty cool secrets. There are 2 pretty well hidden holes you need to fall down, one of which I completely missed because you push this block over it. I also found out that it is in fact possible to dodge the massive barrel of misery by just walking. Your sacrifice from years ago was apparently worth nothing, hot dog. Oh well. Just like before, the no deaths run and the timed run being separated was definitely required. With the Archean charm, the annoying enemies like duelists and snipers go down super easily, but the not getting hit part is the big problem, especially when you're outnumbered like crazy. Fortunately, Stealth Elf made it to the end in one piece. The timed run on the other hand gave me issues, but instead of changing my strategy, I just kept going trying to optimise my time as best as possible, and after a few attempts I did manage to beat it. Give me those fireworks. No, I don't deserve these fireworks, take them back. We've got a chaos to bring order to. The final level is pretty short and has almost no danger compared to the last 2 levels. Yeah, this was a very generous level for once. All the secrets were found first try and all of my Skylanders were still alive. So after our last Auric shopping spree, it was time to face Robo Chaos. This is a simple fight, but it's still really good fun. Is it maybe a tiny bit too short and a tiny bit too easy compared to the rest of the game? Yes, but I'll take that any day of the week over what we had to deal with in Spyro's Adventure. I did end up dying, but that's because I was prioritising the enemies over Chaos himself. I learned that if you focus on damaging Chaos and simply avoid the enemies, then you'll get through the fight even faster and without as much hassle. So just like that, Steroid Elf has single-handedly destroyed Skylanders Giants. Good job, mate. Well, that's the story mode completed. All 48 stars from all 16 levels, giving us a beautiful 100% save file. Oh, and don't forget about that stupid hat. The only reason we had to go through Nightmare mode. I wish I could say that it's worth it. But it's a hat. Okay, time for step 2, which means we have to beat all 4 of these expansion pack levels another 2 times each. Great. The levels are practically identical to last time, and if you don't remember, I thought they were pretty mediocre apart from Dragon's Peak, so having to play them all again twice is not exactly what I was hoping for. I decided to just blaze through them all with Steroid Elf, and can you blame me? Of course you can. The only big difference with these levels is that the soul gems have been removed, and the story scrolls, while still in the levels, don't show up in the collection, and also aren't required to get 3 stars on the levels. Also, the models for the scrolls aren't even there. Instead it's this weird stone, which might be a placeholder, I don't know. Either way, it's weird and they have no value. There also aren't any Locotron wheels or legendary treasures, which means the only things we have to find are the hats and the treasure chests. Obviously I've been through these already, so getting everything wasn't difficult. I was extremely disappointed to see that they hadn't replaced the card matching minigame with Skystones in Pirate Seas, a massively wasted opportunity. But apart from that, there's nothing else to say. Okay, now we're done with the levels, so on to the accolades. Just like in Spyro's Adventure, we can tick quite a lot of these off immediately, but there are still some left for us to clean up, starting with the first bunch of accolades, which are all to do with increasing your collection. These were the only ones that I was really scared of because they eventually require adding 40 orange base Skylanders to your collection. Now I won't sugarcoat it, 40 is a big number, especially considering there are only 16 new Skylanders in the Giants roster. The rest are just reposes or light cores of Skylanders from the first game, which I don't really think are worth getting if you already have the original cast. However, there are some tricks you can use to make the most of the figurines you already have. Similar to the trick we used in Spyro's Adventure, any Series 2 or 3 characters that are originally from Giants will count as being orange based. The weird thing is the game recognises that these figurines are not from Giants, which is why you might have noticed some of your Skylanders with special next to their name. This does not put an end to our little trick. In fact, it actually allows us to use a brand new trick. A special Skylander is counted separately from the regular one, meaning if you have a normal Shroom Boom and a Series 2 Shroom Boom, they will register as two different orange based Skylanders. These tricks were able to help me out a lot in getting the last handful of orange bases that I needed, and hopefully it's enough for some of you to get the accolade yourselves. Now that we scraped through the tough bit, the rest is pretty plain sailing. Getting a Skylander to level 15 really shouldn't be a problem, especially if you have old Skylanders that you maxed out years ago. However, one accolade that was a problem was the one demanding us to collect all 85 hats. Even after completing every level, finding all of Oric's secret spots, and putting Hatterson out of business, I was still missing 3 hats. That's when I remembered about a brand new feature that the 3 hats are locked behind, that being quests. This is a neat little system they added to Giants. Every Skylander, including the original 32, have 9 quests to complete. 5 are shared by every Skylander, 3 are shared by every Skylander of a specific element, and each Skylander has one quest that is completely unique to them. When you complete a certain number of quests, your Skylander will rank up, which doesn't change anything, but it gives them cool little symbols beside their names. Now, it would be pretty ridiculous and pointless for me to complete all 9 quests for all 48 Skylanders, but we do in fact need to get all 9 quests on at least one Skylander, because each time you rank up, you unlock a new bronze, silver, and finally gold hat. Plus, some of these quests are just stupid, so I think fully completing them for one Skylander does the job fine. Steroid Elf seems like the best candidate due to the ridiculous amount of time I've spent playing as her. This meant that a good few of the quests were already completed, so it didn't take long to get the silver and gold top hats, giving us all 85 hats in our collection. Next up is the accolade for beating the 21 arena battles. There are 3 different arenas to complete, each having 7 challenges, which I think is a little bit too much, especially since some challenges are repeated in other arenas. They are still decent fun though, I just wish there was a bit more variety. These were surprisingly easy though, bearing in mind that we're still on Nightmare mode, but at the end of that we have our accolade along with a cute little achievement too. And we unlock a charm from the final challenge of each arena, which gives us the last 3 that we needed. Having all 8 charms would have been pretty helpful when going through Autogyro Adventure, but no point dwelling on it now. Guys, I have good news. Very good news. The big fat accolade for getting every other accolade is back, and it actually works in this game. The world rejoices. So with all 23 accolades achieved, there are only 2 different things we have left to do before step 3. Firstly, the winged sapphires lying around the Dreadyacht. There's 4 of these to collect, and they're not hard to find considering the size of the ship, but you have one next to Flynn, one in the games room, one on the crow's nest, and lastly one on the crane deck. And for the final thing standing in our way, well, I hope you didn't forget about our good friend the Sky Stones. Yep, we still have a handful of these stones to find, and the only thing I could really think to do is to go back to Junkyard Isles or Rumbletown to find the Sky Stones NPCs that we haven't played yet. And we're not off to a great start since Bert here is absolutely refusing to give us more than 1 stone. I played him again and again and again, absolutely nothing. I guess we have to hope Quigley's got 9 stones for us, or else things are gonna get tricky. And just as I was getting through Rumbletown to find Quigley, I remembered something which was incredibly important, and that was the ghost in the Undead Gate who you can play Sky Stones with. And he gave me 2 Sky Stones. Shout out to Spooky, what a legend. Now I only need 7 stones from Quigley, which definitely seems like too much. I just hope Spooky was the only NPC I forgot about. So it's Quigley time. This guy is the best Sky Stones NPC in the game, so I'm expecting some pretty good rewards for beating him. 1 stone. 1 stone? Well, next I did what anyone would do in my situation and asked Serbian Skylands, the Skystones guru, what to do. And he said to stock up on Skystone cheats, which you can get from Oric and Glacier Gully, and simply bully Bert until he coughs up the remaining 6 Skystones. So I did that, and 6 Skystones went to 5, and 5 to 4, until I finally got my last Skystone. Welcome to the club, Arcane Jouster 5, good to have you here. And just like that, we have all 80 Skystones, and step 2 is officially complete. Sorry Bert, but I had to do what I had to do. Step 3 is here, so it's achievement time. You get an achievement for simply completing each level in the game, but each level also has an additional trophy, and some of these did give me a hard time. The Vault of Secrets has a pretty tough achievement where we need to destroy every Archean jet in all of the Concretron segments. You need to be really focused for this one because the Archean jets do not stay on screen for long before disappearing, so memorising when and where they appear during the Concretron segments is very important. I also recommend using a life scanner for this, as the watermelon projectiles have the biggest hitboxes by far. For Willikin Village, we simply have to talk to every Willikin NPC, and there are a ton of them. But I really wasn't sure how I didn't get this achievement on my collection run because I don't remember missing any of them out. But now I'm pretty sure it's because of Ericsson here, who runs away if you don't talk to him before the enemies arrive. Very cheeky of you. Autogyro Adventures achievement requires you to grab all 16 speed boosts during the jet sections. It may take a few tries to memorise where the speed boosts are placed, but bear in mind how many times I had to replay this level during step 1, so I got all the practice that I needed. Remember how I somehow wasn't awarded the trophy for having the maximum amount of gold on one Skylander? Well, I realised that you have to reach 65,000 gold while playing Giants. You can't just put a Skylander into the game that already has 65,000 gold. Just from playing the rest of the game, Stereodelph was already really close to the max amount of gold, and ironically the totally unwanted gold that I got from playing Skystones was actually what earned me the last amount of money I needed to get this achievement. And that was our 45th and final achievement, completely completing Skylanders Giants. You know, while the game itself took a massive step up in difficulty, that was only really in step 1. Everything else was pretty much just as simple as Spyro's Adventure, which I was very surprised by. Plus we got everything this time because Giants on the Xbox 360 actually works properly. 3 cheers for Giants. I suddenly feel immense dread for the next game. Weird, I have no idea why though. Swap Force time. I won't lie, I'm feeling pretty good about this one. After all, it is known to be my favourite Skylanders game. Whether that is still true nowadays, I'm honestly not sure, especially after how much fun I had completing Giants. Maybe 100% in this game will give me the answer to whether this is truly my favourite or not. Even though the leap from Giants to Swap Force is a huge one, our structure is still the same. For step 1 we get 3 stars on all 19 levels, including the 2 expansion packs. Now I know there's only 14 levels in Swap Force, but strangely the 5 big bosses of the game have their own 3 stars, so technically they're considered as unique chapters, so that gives us a target of 57 stars. The 3-star system has stayed pretty similar. We have the objective star, nothing different there, but as I mentioned back in Spyro's Adventure, they changed the completion star to the Dare star, bravo. It is just the same star with a different name though, because we still have the classics like the enemy goal and the no lives lost requirement, but no time goal for this one. Wow, that's actually really refreshing, thank you Swap Force. You know, as long as there isn't a side mode which is just a replacement for the time goal. But you wouldn't do that, right? And lastly, the collection star has all the collectibles we know and love, so nothing to mention there. However, something we need to talk about are the swap zones. There are 3 of these to complete in each level, and they can only be accessed with the bottom halves of certain swappers. Once you beat one of these swap zones, you're rewarded with a hat box. But these aren't your average hat boxes, oh no. These hat boxes aren't really hat boxes because there's now 4 different collectibles you can find in them, and that goes for the hat boxes in the elemental gates too. But yes, I'm still calling them hat boxes because I simply can't call them anything else. They can give you legendary treasures, winged sapphires, bonus mission maps, and can you believe it, they also give you hats. The only newcomer of those 4 are the mission maps, which are essentially heroic challenges, but they are unlocked behind specific Skylanders. So you might be thinking, if there's no longer legendary treasures or winged sapphires to collect in the actual levels, then what the hell is there to collect? Well, we've still got the classic treasure chests, story scrolls and soul gems, but new to the game is the, drumroll please, random sets of objects. Yeah, it's a weird one. Essentially each level has a set of different themed items to find just like your other collectibles. Some of these are pretty wacky and charming. I do have a soft spot for them even though they don't do anything special. However, I'm not a massive fan of this collectible being in the Dares star, you know, because it's a collectible. We were this close to having a perfect 3-star system, guys. This close. Also, how could I forget that we need to play on Nightmare mode for the same reason as before. I just love Nightmare exclusive hats, don't you? But with all that said, let's get right into the game with Mount Cloudbreak. While nothing is brutally hard to find, even the first level shows we had our brains turned on and our eyes peeled for secret paths and caves. The level also introduces us to giant chests that only giants can unlock. You don't actually need to open these to get 3 stars on a level, but you should still get them whenever you see one because we'll need them for something later. We also get our first free swap zones. Yay! For now all we need to do is simply get through them. The red gems are completely optional and just give you extra gold. Like I said earlier, completing the swap zones gives you a hat box and therefore the same reward system as the elemental gates. Unfortunately we're going to have to play every single one of these again in step 2, so I won't go into detail on them until then. Cascade Glade also keeps up the difficulty as the secret areas tend to blend into the level's background. Make sure you're paying attention to gaps in the walls since a good chunk of the collectibles are hidden like this. Also be careful for secret moving platforms in the cave sections and you'll be all set for 3 stars. Before we move on to the next level, we have to help Tuck rebuild his shop. Do it yourself, you lazy schmuck. Actually, I should be nice to this guy because he has a bunch of hats, mission maps and legendary treasures, and we need to buy them all. Open up your wallets because this is going to be a big spend. Mudwater Hollow is next, and while the fishing sucks and the raft sections overstay their welcome, this is still a fun chapter with a little town to explore, which I always love. This is a long ass level though, so missing something along the way is more than understandable. I'm only saying that to make myself feel better for missing 2 collectibles. In the first 2 games, if you miss a collectible and go back to get it, you can just exit the level and the secret still counts as being found. I think you know where this is going. In Swap Force, you have to finish the entire level just for the 1 or 2 things that you missed, no matter if it's the first secret in the level or the last. Of course, this feature is in the game with the longest levels. After going back and kicking myself for not paying enough attention, we beat the level with 3 stars. Rampant Ruins is one of my all-time favourite levels in the franchise. It's got great secrets, a nice and unique environment, and some pretty tough enemies. Speaking of enemies, this level introduces us to battle chests, which only unlock after you win a small arena fight. It's only seen a few times throughout the game, but it's a nice little variation. And also, unlike the giant chests, you do actually need to get these ones. Now I remember Rampant Ruins being Swap Force's first real difficulty spike. And it is. I died on the very last fight of the level, which sucks, but I figured out a little trick to make this a bit less annoying. You see, if you die after you've reached the checkpoint, you can leave the level, go back to the checkpoint, and the no deaths goal is reset. What's great about this is that all the collectibles you got past the checkpoint are saved, so you don't have to find them all again. And if you were to die before reaching the checkpoint, you're in even more luck. When you reach the checkpoint, you can simply exit the level, jump back in from the checkpoint, and the game will completely forget that you died. Easy peasy. Anyways, back to the level. This time round I defeated all the enemies, went to grab this chest, and then... oops. But surely we can go back. Nope. So after restarting from the checkpoint a second time, we finally clear the level with 3 stars. Wow, never mind. Okay, now playing through for the 4th time, we finally get 3 stars, which leads us to our first boss, Evil Glumshanks. Each boss shares the same 3-star system. We get the 1st star for beating the boss, the 2nd star for not losing any lives, and the 3rd for not getting hit a single time. For Glumshanks, we were able to do it 2nd try after getting hit at the very last possible moment the 1st time. Make sure you're using a Skylander who can either slow down the arcane knuckle dusters or kill them quickly, because they are a big nuisance and cover a lot of area with their blasts. Still not too difficult though. Ironjaw Gulch is pretty easy compared to some of the other levels, probably because there's much less going on in the background, which makes spotting secret areas a lot easier. There are still some tough collectibles though, especially this one ridiculous Marshall Wheelock plushie that requires you to bounce on this specific bed a bunch of times until it breaks. This is Perilous Pastures levels of stupid secret. After this level we talk to Tibbet, who shows us that we can use legendary treasures to give us stat boosts if we place them on the several pedestals found around the hub world. It's not quite as cool as being able to decorate the Dread Yacht, but I appreciate that the legendary treasures are at least used for something. In fact, while we're here, let's talk about the hub world. Despite its big size, Woodborough doesn't have too many secret areas. If you do some light exploring, you should be able to find everything there is to get in no time. One thing I don't understand and will probably never understand is the Rainbow Bridge, which leads you to a chest and a story scroll. I don't know what makes the bridge appear, I just know that sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. Anyways, we move on to Motleyville, my beloved. One of the main reasons I love this level is because they use the junkyard theming to hide some really cool secrets. And there are some tough ones to find, but I know this level at the back of my hand, so I didn't have any issues. Of course, nothing can go easy for me though, so this Greeble decided to run away so that I couldn't get past the battle gate. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been softlocked for the first time during our challenge. And it wasn't even in Trap Team. Oh yeah, we also have a boss fight with Baron von Shellshock, but I guess he doesn't deserve his own chapter. Crustacean lives matter, guys. Stop the hate. Everything went to plan in twisty tunnels apart from this stupid water gate. You need to bounce around while avoiding fireballs that are coming from the camera, giving basically no time to react to them. And the hitboxes are so big that you still wouldn't be able to avoid them anyway. And since we're on nightmare mode, well, I died. Luckily it wasn't too far past the checkpoint, so I kept going and grabbed the hat box and then restarted so that I didn't have to complete it again. Yeah, I have smart moments sometimes. Other than that, I'll spare you the miserably mediocre details of this boring level. Now we face the Fire Viper, which is one of the hardest bosses to not get hit on. This is because of these fireballs that circle around halfway into the fight, and the screen is not big enough to know where all of them are at any one time. After all these years of using Spy Shift, I realised that I was neglecting his bottom half quite a bit. But now it has its time to shine. The Rise of Rise. Because Rise can move around in the air avoiding the fireballs, it was pretty much essential to our success. I say that, but when you get a hang of the fireball patterns, you will probably be able to get through with any Skylander. But Spyro was still a huge help, especially against the fire gear golems at the end. I had one concern going into Boney Islands, and that was the final turret section, as I've lost some good troops to it in the past. I wisely chose to use Rubble Shift for decent health and also extra lives, and somehow I made it through with barely a scratch. I don't know what to tell you, the game cut me some slack for once. There was also this area that makes you defeat a group of enemies within a time limit, and if you don't kill them all fast enough, you will never be able to get the story scroll and will legit have to restart the level. The worst part is it is right before the checkpoint and you can't go back to retry it, so they knew what they were doing. Make sure you have a strong Skylander for this bit. Well, that brings our save file up to 50%, damn, I was way off this time. Oops. Anyways, let's keep it up because I'm making pretty good pace for such a long game. Here is Winter Keep. You know your level is boring when there's less to talk about than goddamn twisty tunnels. Don't you think this level really did was annoy me when I got to the end and I was missing a single mitten? Not even a pair. By this point, it was really tiresome to have to restart levels for a single thing I was missing. I totally respect the secrets being difficult in this game, but not when it forces me to play through 15 to 20 minutes of a level I just did. And this is with Spy Shift as well, one of the strongest and fastest combos in the game. But I sucked it up eventually and headed back in for this stupid handsock. Even though Frostfest Mountains is the darkest level in the game, I didn't have any issues with finding secrets. Along with that, it's a relatively short level and I'll take as many of those as I can get for this challenge. A good few of the collectibles are found in the 2 villages where you have to play minigames to get prizes. I can imagine some people not enjoying these, but they were quite refreshing for me and didn't overstay their welcome. At the end of the level awaits Mesmerelda, who really isn't that hard. Even during the final phase with a ton of stuff going on, it's still completely manageable, especially if you have a ranged attack to trigger the snowman bombs before they reach you. I even had a moment of personal growth and beat it fair and square without using the corner trick. I mean, I was using Spyro, but I can only grow so much in one day. I almost found it easier than Glumshanks to beat without getting hit, so a pretty successful run. Not only does Phantasm Forest have some of the toughest battles in the whole game, but also some of the tougher secrets, especially the ones that blend in like Cascade Glade. It also has not 1, not 2, but 3 turret sections. Fantastic stuff guys, this was totally necessary. It's also probably the longest level in the game, so pay extra super duper attention to the secrets because you won't want to go through this again after just playing it. Well, that brings us to the final level, Chaos's Fortress, and I was in the zone. I got through all the countless enemies with no deaths and finished the level with everything done in one go. So now all we're left with is the final 2 bosses, starting with Chaos's mum. Now I knew not dying wouldn't be too much of an issue, but not getting hit would be a real endurance test with how damn long this boss is. It is essentially an evilized enemy gauntlet and it is pretty tough with the amount of things going on at once. Just when I was about to reach for Spy Shift, I thought to myself, am I boring? So to prove that I'm not relying on one broken combo, I'm using a different broken combo this time. Doom is probably the most underrated top half in the entire game. His shield can protect him from virtually anything that stands in his way. He can even block attacks from above him, which doesn't even make sense. As long as you keep the shield up and facing the right way, you are practically untouchable. And as we said before, Rise deserves some more of the spotlight and he can escape from sticky situations. Did I just refer to a bunch of legs as he? Anyways, it wasn't easy. Like, it really wasn't. Even with this amount of game breaking cheese, it still felt like something could go sideways at any moment, and a lot of times it did. But I learned how to keep cool and which enemies to target first to make it as manageable as possible, and eventually I got to the end completely hitless. But just when you think you can catch your breath, we have super evil Chaos to deal with. And while Chaos's mum is the longer fight, this one is more difficult by a country mile. It's only this hard because of the no hit objective, which felt impossible in some sections. The feet section is really easy, only having a few shockwaves to jump over. But the next section has you in a small area with mega tough gear golems. I will admit, if I wasn't using Spy Rise, I would have no idea how to beat this without getting hit. It is honestly ridiculous. Well, a new addition to this game is the ability to lower the difficulty on a Nightmare Mode save file. But no, we are doing this the real way. Even if you could probably have it on easy mode until the very end of the boss and just switch back to Nightmare Mode, that is not who I am. We've gotten this far, no point in giving up now. Did I just get hit by an invisible shockwave? Is it still too late to give up? Well, the third section is in the brain, and I thought they would cut me some slack for at least a little while, but no, we have steroid-induced enemies spammed everywhere that are practically invincible. I was barely hanging on in this fight with the second ability. Once again, what the hell are you meant to do here? This was very difficult, especially the arcane rip rotors with absolutely insane hitboxes. The worst part is how long it takes to get back to where you were after restarting, which made it more of a mental battle than anything else. This took me hours, like several hours, and those were some of the worst hours of my life. Even though I lost time and time again, I was edging closer to victory with each attempt, until finally I reached the last section of the fight. Okay, it's finally over. And after all that agony, we get a volcano hat. Huh, it's actually pretty cool. Before properly moving on to step 2, it's probably best that we get 3 stars on the 2 expansion pack levels, starting with one of my personal favourites, Tower of Time. This is another of the longest levels in this game. It actually might be longer than Phantasm Forest, but don't quote me on that. Now, I'm a big fan of this level. It was the first ever expansion pack I owned, so I've played it quite a few times. This meant I was able to get all the secrets first try. Almost opposite to Tower of Time, I seem to really suck at Shipwreck Islands because I always miss something in this level and I'm not sure why. I lost an all-time high of 3 collectibles this time, which I didn't even think was possible. Also, the first and only time I ever missed a swap zone, which is a little embarrassing. After going back and getting them all, I think it boiled down to me not paying enough attention because none of them were even that hard. I'm not too upset though because I knew this was the last time we need to replay a level to get a collectible. Well, here is our sexy 100% save file looking as good as ever. Okay, that's step 1 fully completed, and just so you know, we're about to step into a new dimension of painful repetitive post-game content. And all I can say is if you're sensitive around the topic of torture, then I suggest clicking off this video right now. To complete step 2, we must defeat this entire menu of stuff. And bear in mind that we've only done one thing on this menu so far, so this might take a while. Let's just list off everything we need to do. First off, we have the swap zones, then the arena battles, then time attack and score mode, and then the bonus mission maps. After that, well, let's not think about it yet. Trust me, it's for the best. So yes, you have to do every single swap zone again. For no reason. The game knows for a fact that I've completed every swap zone already because you can only unlock these repeated ones by beating the swap zones in each level. The only real difference with these bonus swap zones is that the red gems are now replaced with swap emblems. They sound cool, but they're just another collectible with no significance. Each of the 42 zones, yes, there's 42 of them, have 3 stars. First one for beating it, second one for grabbing all 3 of the swap emblems, and the third is unique to the type of swap zone. So let's talk about each swap zone type and go over some of the most difficult parts. This is gonna be fun. First up are all the climb zones, and whilst they are one of the easier ones overall, they do still have their tough moments. The third star requires you to not get hit a single time, and with the amount of stuff thrown at you in the later stages, this can be difficult. My best advice is to be as patient as possible. Eventually you will find a way forward instead of just trying to cut corners, which will almost always screw you over. None of the stages had standout difficulty though. Next up are the rocket zones. I am not good at these. Never have been and never will. All you have to do is get from point A to B while avoiding obstacles and flying through rings. Just like the climb zones, you cannot be hit, and with a time limit now, we already have some stress added on. Don't be scared of the timer though, because you're given a lot more leeway than you would think. If you need to, stop to avoid obstacles, or even try and take the long way around. Obviously you're still being timed, so don't mess around for too long, but you get what I mean. But some of these zones took me way too long to complete because I just can't get the hang of the controls. Whenever I'm put in a tight space close to obstacles, I just crumble. Luckily we have the teleport zones next, and they are so easy I don't even think they deserve a segment. They just aren't all that challenging and only last for a minute each. Also, the third star requiring you not to get hit is pretty pointless for the most part. Bounce is up next, and all you really have to do is pay attention. The bonus goal is to bounce on every single platform in the stage, which does take a while, but it really isn't difficult. Also, thank God the platforms light up after you bounce on them, because I would not be able to keep track of them otherwise. The only reason bounce isn't the easiest is because if you don't plan out your route properly, then you can screw yourself over. Also, be extra careful around these one bounce only platforms. They did ruin a couple of my attempts. Once again, the sneak zones aren't difficult as long as you're patient and pay attention. The third star is to beat the zone without getting caught by the headlights, and this is super easy. These are definitely my least favourite type because they drag on a bit too long and they're just boring. But I got through them all pretty fast. The speed zones are pretty fun. You need to race across a track in a certain time limit, grabbing the emblems along the way. The third star requires you to get through with a much stricter time limit, which can be achieved by avoiding obstacles and spamming the hell out of the boost button. These are pretty difficult to 3-star on your first attempt because you need to memorise the movement of the obstacles and the emblems, especially since the later obstacles slow you down so much that one mistake could force you to restart. Luckily, as the name would imply, these are pretty quick to get through, so retry as much as you need. The dig zones are some of the easier ones for sure. The unique star is simply for finishing in a stricter amount of time, and as long as you have a rough layout of the cave in your mind, you won't have any problems. However, this did mean I had to play for each zone at least twice because you won't have time to also get all the swap emblems. But they're pretty short levels, so that wasn't an issue. The only one that gave me any trouble with its time goal was Glacial Descent, but even then it only took me a few tries to find the quickest route through. Okay, I've saved the best for last because the only ones left are the spin zones. Spin is easily the least fun and most annoying zone type in the game. You spin around like a pinball in a very small area with very slippy controls, and hitting a stone or a barrel will send you flying, making it very hard to keep control. The swap emblems are deliberately put in annoying spots which can easily lead to death, and there are 3 areas you need to survive in each zone, and if you fall off or run out of health, it's back to the start. The bonus star is earned by not using your super spin a single time, which is super annoying because it takes ages to destroy barrels without using it. For the most part, they aren't too difficult to get 3 stars on, apart from one zone which without a doubt is the evilest zone out of all 42, Twisted Towers. What makes this one the hardest compared to the others is that it's filled to the brim with mines, and since we're on nightmare mode we do not have a lot of leeway when it comes to getting hit by them. There is food lying around but nowhere near enough to keep us safe. That really is the one problem with this zone, but it is such a massive one. The lack of control makes it super difficult to avoid the mines, and sometimes you might get super unlucky and bounce from one mine to another. It's a nasty zone and it took me a long time to complete. I tried using a health buffing hat, I tried using Doomstone for more health, I even tried using Player 2's ability, but it didn't really help much. I knew the only option I had was to get through it fair and square, so I decided to split the stars into multiple runs. One run I get the emblems and beat the zone, then the second run I beat the zone without the super spin. This was a great strategy, but it's still easier said than done because I just kept dying and dying until, well, I didn't die. Awesome. That's all 126 stars from the swap zones in the bag. Okay, that wasn't so bad until the end anyway, so let's keep the ball rolling and move on to the arena battles. So we chat to Snagglescale and see that we have 60 stars to get, holy moly. Normally it would only be 36 stars, but you unlock a bonus arena set when you place in the Sheepwreck Islands figurine, and another one with the Archean crossbow. So these arena battles are pretty decent. In fact, I would say that it's better than the Giants arena mode because the challenges are more interesting and they're never repeated. Different to Giants is that now you can earn up to 3 stars on each arena challenge rather than just 1. Man, this game is obsessed with the 3-star system. Anyway, to get 3 stars you need to reach a certain amount of points by the end, and also not die along the way, that would be good too. You earn points by defeating enemies, and damaging enemies increases your point multiplier. If you get hit, your multiplier goes down. That's pretty much the gist of it. Now, one criticism I do have of this arena is, surprise surprise, the length. Not only do the arena battles themselves last for too long, but there's also way too many of them. The 12 arena challenges you have from the get-go are manageable, but the extra 8 is just a bit much. I know that Giants had 21 challenges, but as I said, these Soft Force ones are way too long as it is, so 20 of them just feels like a drag. And arguably the worst part is that we need to play all these arenas again in the 2-player mode. What I don't understand is why the game forces you to get all the stars in both modes. If you're playing by yourself, then you won't want to play the team survival, and if you're playing with a friend, you won't want to play the solo survival, so nobody wins here. But don't worry if you don't have somebody to play with, just plug an extra controller in. It doesn't matter if the second player dies, so you can just ignore them and move on. However, I am convinced that this challenge where you have to defend the fruit is impossible without the second player helping. I must have tried 5 or 6 times on my own and I just couldn't fend off the hordes of enemies by myself. I beat it completely fine on solo survival, so they must have amped it up like crazy here. None of the other ones gave me any hassle though, so there we have it, all 120 stars in the arena mode. Something else to mention is that completing each of these challenges awards you with a charm. I always forget that this game has charms, probably because they are way lamer than the ones in Giants. These ones just give you a stat boost like the legendary treasures. A lot of the charms in Giants gave you specific and interesting advantages. These ones are just boring, but it's nothing to collect and I like collecting things. Score mode is next, and it is the most boring, uninteresting thing I've ever had to do. You build up your multiplier by hitting enemies and earn points from defeating them just like in the arena. On top of that, you get points for collecting coins and you can get multiplier bonuses in secret areas, but that's not enough to stop this from feeling like playing through the exact same levels again. Such a colossal waste of time and a very unenjoyable experience. At least it's incredibly easy, so you shouldn't have to retry any of the levels or bosses, but the fact that's a positive thing tells you everything you need to know. Of course, I like this game and I like the levels, but after playing for this long in such a condensed period of time, score mode just feels like a slap in the face. And if that wasn't bad enough, we have to play through each level and boss again for the time attack mode. Admittedly, this is a slight improvement from score mode since you'll get through the levels quicker, but that's the only praise I can give this mode. Because again, its only purpose is to add more pointless content to a game that's already got plenty of stuff to do. Also, just because it's called time attack doesn't mean the levels are going to be quick. They'll probably still take about 10 minutes at the absolute shortest. Anyways, I beat them all with no effort apart from one traumatizing instance. Evil Glumshanks. What the hell happened here? This has to be an oversight from Vicarious Visions because I'm telling you right now, there is absolutely no way you can beat this boss on Nightmare mode in under 1 minute and 45 seconds. In fact, I couldn't even beat it in under 3 minutes, but at the same time, I'm not very good. But regardless of that, how on earth are we going to beat this time goal? Well, there is one pretty popular glitch for speedrunning in this fight, which should be able to get us the 3 stars. But unfortunately, the only Skylander that can pull it off is Sprocket. Basically, if you place Sprocket's turret on a certain piece of Glumshank's vehicle, when he puts all the pieces back together, the turret goes with it and it just completely destroys the boss for whatever reason. As far as I'm concerned, this glitch is absolutely required to get 3 stars here. If anyone can prove this boss to be possible without glitches, please feel free to let me know because that would be insanely impressive. Oh yeah, something else that happened during Time Attack was my second soft lock after I somehow glitched onto the platform in Shipwreck Islands. Man, this level does not like me. Track Team's gonna have some big shoes to fill in terms of glitches because Swap Force is doing pretty good. The last extra mode is the bonus mission maps, and they are essentially this game's heroic challenges. While there is a time limit, the main goal is to rack up as many points as possible. Like the arena mode and the score mode. I would have much preferred these mission maps to stick to the time focus because not only is the point system getting very stale, but they also go on for way too long and there's 20 of them to get through. Overall, they are cool and probably the best bonus content the game has to offer though. Some are better than others, but I can still see the effort they put into making the new locations, the set pieces and everything else involved. Well, it's nice to end on a positive note because those were pretty enjoyable. That's what I wish I could say, but it's not the end yet, and trust me, when it is the end, there will be no positivity in sight. Let's not hold any punches here, this game has not been the most enjoyable to fully complete so far. So much of it has felt like soulless filler, which only big Swap Force fans will be able to sit through. But what if I told you it gets worse? Because we haven't gotten onto the most egregious part of this game's 100% completion. Something so bad, it makes me say with absolute certainty that Swap Force is the worst game to 100% complete in the history of video games. The accolades. In the last 2 games, the accolades weren't a very big deal. I mean, I completed a lot of them without even realising it. And while the same can be said for a good chunk of Swap Force's accolades, there are more accolades in this game than Spyro's Adventure and Giants combined, and it's a lot to unpack. So the rest of the game now boils down to achieving all of them, and heads up, none of it is going to be fun. So because there are so many of them, the accolades had to be split into 4 different categories. The exploration accolades are all earned through finding collectibles in levels and in Woodborough. Of course, we've done all of these already. The completion accolade mainly involves earning stars from levels, arenas and everything else that we've already done. But there are a couple of accolades which involve beating things on Nightmare mode, so there's another reason we have to play on Nightmare mode besides the silly hat. Anyways, this has been done already, so there's only 2 accolade categories left standing. Let's make them sit down. The first category we have to tackle is the collection accolades. All of the accolades in this section are achieved by increasing your Skylanders collection, similar to what Giants did. And remember how back then it was pretty crazy to need 40 orange base figurines? Well, I feel like taking everything I said back because Swap Force is a million times worse. At first it doesn't seem too bad. Add 6 blue base Skylanders to your collection, have a swapper for every ability. But very quickly it starts demanding way more of you. And I mean way more. The accolades start requiring every swapper, every giant, every magic item, every light core from Swap Force and Giants, all 32 green base figurines from Spyro's Adventure, all 10 Series 3 and Series 2 Skylanders from Swap Force, and all 24 of the Series 2s from Giants. That's not even it because you also need a sidekick, but it has to be one from the first 2 games. The minis from Trap Team do the exact same thing as the sidekicks in Swap Force, but for some reason they just don't count. Just to add on top of everything, if you have a variant of a repose, for example Legendary Series 2 Slam Bam, then it does not count as a repose. What? And yes, this example is taken from reality. I actually had to buy the regular Series 2 Slam Bam, but to be honest, on top of everything else we need to buy, it's like a grain of sand, so who cares? Jesus H. Christ. So just to sum up how many Skylanders you need to buy just for these stupid accolades, you need all 16 swappers, 8 giants, 16 light cores, the original 32 Skylanders, 10 Series 3 Skylanders, 30 Series 2 Skylanders, 12 magic items and the sidekick. Funnily enough, I ran the numbers and you can get all of these accolades only owning half of the core Skylanders from Swap Force. It's funny, you'd think the accolades would push for you to collect the Swap Force roster rather than the older ones, but I guess not. Do you remember how I was able to use that special trick to fill out the roster in Giants? Well, I guess that was all pointless now because I had to buy them all anyway, including the ones that are super rare in the UK, forcing me to buy them from the US like Series 2 Drobot and Series 2 Bash. Well, I don't need this anymore. Oh man, that would have been cool. I can't even count how many figurines I bought for the sole purpose of completing these accolades. You all know I'm not the biggest fan of reposes nor light cores, and I still had to buy every single one of them. This game is evil and horrible and merciless, and I actually can't believe the things I've let it do to me. And to make things worse, we also need to use all 256 swap combinations. Obviously we just need the 16 swappers to do this, and we also have this chart to show which combinations we've already done, but this is still not fun to complete. I strongly recommend that you change your swappers around frequently during levels, because it'll save you from having to do a bunch of combos after you've already beaten the game. Also make sure you have ownership of all of your swappers so that you don't have to redo combos you've already used. It was a bit boring, but eventually the chart got fuller and fuller and fuller until it was finally complete. What a god awful time to be alive. I wish I could say that after all that headache and depression and bankruptcy that we're finally done with Swap Force, but there's still the last category of accolades to do. The challenge accolades. Most of them are pretty basic and earned through playing the story. There's some that aren't a problem, like maxing out a Skylander or buying everything from Tuck's shop, but the ones that are left to be completed are just plain stupid. So not only do we need to open 50 single element gates, not only 40 dual elemental gates, but also 100 gates in total? Why though? Why? There are obviously not 100 elemental gates in this game, so they deliberately put us in the game so that we'd have to replay a level over and over again. I really do not know what the thought process was on this one, but we may as well soldier through it. And it turns out that rampant ruins is our key to getting this over with as quickly as possible. Firstly, there's an earth gate right next to the checkpoint, so if you keep restarting from the checkpoint, you can keep opening the gate over and over. I only had to do this a couple times, so I dealt with it first. However, I wasn't as fortunate with the dual gates since there's only 15 or so in the game, so I still had a ton to open. But there's a dual gate roughly a minute into rampant ruins, so I was pretty thankful for that. It still isn't great that I had to do this 34 times. Yes, 34 times. 24 times for the dual gate accolade, and then another 10 after that for the 100 gates nonsense. But at this point I don't have the energy to be angry, so let's just forget this ever happened and grab these stupid accolades. We're not done yet though, because in the same stupid sense as the elemental gates, we need to open 30 giant chests, which again forces us to do the same thing over and over. This time we're using Chaos's Fortress, as the chest is very shortly after the checkpoint. This one didn't take as long, and by this point I was just so determined to finish the game I didn't even care about the repetition. After that we had to open 20 unique Sparklock puzzles, another one that I didn't complete from the story alone. The only thing I could think of doing for this accolade was the Sparklock chest in the hub world, but it gave me a puzzle I'd already done, and even after restarting the game I still got the same one. Then this dumb fish informed me that the puzzle changes daily, which is the opposite of what I wanted to hear. So I went again the next day, and you won't believe it, it's the exact same puzzle as the day before. Screw you fish man. Well, let's put the Sparklock aside for now because the quests from Giants are back and we need to get a bronze, silver and gold rank for the accolades. Unfortunately, the quests I completed in Giants don't transfer over, so I couldn't just use Stealth Out for this one. Her little gold rank emblem from Giants still shows up though, which is a nice little detail, but not really helpful. But I've used Spyro so much that I already had all the quests done for him except for the PvP one, so I completed that one to get our gold rank easy peasy. Sorry Steroid Elf, but the new MVP is here. Okay, there is literally nothing else I can do now, so I have to figure out where these 3 missing puzzle locks are. So once again, I went to Serbian Skylands for help, and he said to ignore the dumbass fish. I just have to reset the chest by going into a level and going back to Woodborough. And I actually got a different puzzle this time. One that I'd already done before, but still a different one than usual, which gave me hope. So I kept going and going until I got a new puzzle, and then another, and then another, and then finally I completed the accolade. Only for a new one to appear, which required me to do all 20 puzzle locks while grabbing one of the bonus bolts. Great. And then you won't believe what happened when I completed that accolade. That's right, another one which required me to get both of the bonus bolts. Who would have seen that coming? Okay, that's it though. Every single accolade completed, all 158 of them. To be honest, I didn't think I'd make it out to the other side without something bad happening. But there is still one little thing we have to do that not even the accolades cover. We are still missing 4 hats. Well, I really hope this goes better than Spyro's Adventure. 3 of these hats are exclusively unlocked by the seasonal variants, those being Kickoff Countdown, Jolly Bumble Blast and Springtime Trigger Happy. Simply placing these 3 down will give you the free hats automatically. But something I wanted to mention is because you can't use variants to complete the Repos accolade, that means you need regular Series 3 Trigger Happy for the accolade, and then also this variant of Series 3 Trigger Happy just for the hat. Isn't that just annoying? But of course there is all but a single hat remaining now, and obviously for us to not already have it, it must be a stupid one that we find in a stupid way. I was right. Let's give a warm welcome to the UFO hat. One of the weirdest things in the Skylanders series. This thing is somehow a hat and a magic item at the same time, because in order to get it, you must use this official card which scans the hat into the game. I never thought a piece of card would be this expensive, but because the card was only available in certain stores in certain countries for a very limited time, the UFO hat is extremely rare. So we pop it down and get the hat. What a weird way to finish the game. Of course we still have step 3 to tackle, and you know the script by now. We've already completed most of these trophies for 100% completion, especially this game since I've done so much, so it would be pretty bizarre for there to be any trophies left to complete. But unlike Giants, there are no bonus trophies for each level. It's a bit of a shame, but do I really want to be playing this game for any longer than I already have? Probably not. I feel like if I play much more I will actually become a copy of Swap Force. There is a cute little trophy we get for using a fire scanner to set off the fireworks at the top of the tree, but other than that, only one thing stands in our way, and this one cannot be conquered. We simply need to look at the signpost in Woodborough. It's just right there next to Rufus. Just right here. I'm right in front of it. So why can't I read it? Long story short, unless you got this trophy while the signpost was still getting updates years ago, then you cannot and will never be able to get this trophy, and therefore get a platinum trophy on the game. I was so desperate I even checked to see if I could get it on the Xbox 360 version, but no luck there either. So I guess this is it, the end of the challenge. After all of that struggle and effort, I have still failed to 100% complete Skylanders Swap Force. So that's going to wrap up this video. Make sure you smash subscribe. Who am I kidding? Of course I'm going to continue. I've come this far. Halfway to be exact, so it would be crazy to not see this challenge off to the end, even if we have technically failed. Anyway, I truly do not think it can get worse than what we've already gone through, so enthusiastically, let's move on to Trap Team. So Trap Team is definitely the odd one out of this challenge because there really isn't a step 2 in the game. Nearly all of the optional content in this game counts towards a 100% save file. If anything, I kinda like this because it makes all of the game feel rewarding because I'm at least getting something from all these bonus challenges. So in terms of a 3-star system, there are a couple of differences. The Dare Star is still called the Dare Star, thank god, I was scared they'd mess it up again. As for the contents of this star, we now need to defeat every villain and go into every elemental gate in the level. But once again, we're missing the time goal. Surely they wouldn't make me think the time goal is absent and then find a way to bring it into the game later. They already did that in Swap Force, they wouldn't do it again. The collection start is the same, bringing the winged sapphires back as proper collectibles, which I do like a lot. They just worked well as collectibles in Giants, so it felt weird to get them from hat boxes in Swap Force. Well, to be fair, it felt weird to get anything other than hats in hat boxes, but you get what I mean. Because of previous inconveniences, I was scared about Trap Team's bugs and glitches sabotaging our challenge. Sure, most of the bugs experienced in this game are harmless and pretty funny, but it's the fact that something terrible could always happen without really being able to prevent it, and that's going to keep me on edge for the entire playthrough. Plus, after the Swap Force antics that I was not expecting, I could really use a break from this stuff. Oh yeah, before we begin, remember how I banned the usage of traps in my Nightmare Mode video a while back? Well, we are still playing on Nightmare Mode for the exclusive hat, because of course we are. But the main focus of this challenge is the 100% completion, and I feel like using the villains would offer me the full Trap Team experience. Not to mention they are obviously required to complete the game. I'll try and refrain from using them during parts of the game that I want to challenge myself on, but they are most certainly not banned from this playthrough. Using Flipwreck is though. So the Springs is up first, and I have to say Trap Team is coming out of the gate swinging with its secret areas. The area underneath the Soda River is pretty tricky, but my god, this spot is impossible to find unless you already knew about it. They even called it the really secret spot in case you didn't realise already. Just like any other first level, we're introduced to the main mechanics of the game, like the new Traptanium elemental gates. Wow. You can't use any old Skylanders or any of the Trap Team cores to open these gates. That's right, you cannot unlock these elemental gates with the Skylanders that came out with the game. Speaking of Traptanium, we also see a couple of crystals lying around. Think of these like the feats of strength from Giants. They're basically just barriers blocking you from reaching secret areas and collectibles, and only the Trap Masters can get past them. Ironically, it turns out that breaking the crystal in this area makes the fight stop prematurely, meaning that I failed the enemy goal by the end of the level. What a ripoff. We also find our first villain stash, which you guessed it, are chests that can only be opened by villains. Unlike the giant chests in Swap Force, these actually do count as treasure chests, so you do need to open them. And I tried to trap Sheep Creep, but the trap didn't work, so I literally don't have any villains to use. Good start. So I had to play through again, but I had to go back to get the enemy goal anyway, so whatever. It's also a great opportunity to mention that we're back to not having to finish a level when replaying to pick up a missed collectible. Not that it would be a huge problem anyway since Trap Team has fairly short levels, but I'm still grateful. Just like that, we have 3 stars on our first level without too much of an issue. Wait, where are my fireworks? What the hell, man? Well, now we get to check out the hub world, and there isn't a lot to do at the moment. We can talk to Auric and buy some stuff from him, including a storm hat for 25,000 gold. Jesus man, we just started the playthrough, I don't have that kind of money. We also have the villain vault in the middle of the academy, which you can use to change which villain's in your trap. And lastly, there's a special hat box that we get every time we increase our Portal Master rank. These give you a ton of different rewards, and heads up, we can reach rank 40, so we'll have a lot of these to open by the end. Back to the story, Know It All Islands is pretty straightforward. It gives us our very first villain quest though, and there's definitely some things to go over here. So each villain has a villain quest, which is essentially a way for the villain to make up for the evil things they've done in the past. Some of these quests have you doing lamer versions of heroic challenges, while other ones simply require you to talk to the NPC and that's the quest finished. Wow, you really made up for your evil by standing there doing nothing. Good job, pal. Your villain also evolves after the quest is complete, which makes them do more damage, but also changes their colours. I'm not a really big fan of this. Even though some of them look pretty cool, a lot of them don't, and I wish you could change them back to their original look. You don't need to do these villain quests to get 3 stars on a level, but a good handful of the quests reward you with hidden areas or collectibles, so they're worth doing just in case that happens. In terms of everything else, this level doesn't have anything to talk about, it's pretty simple. It does have a life gate in it, which is a very cool throwback to Falling Forest. I remember that like it was just an hour ago. Chompy Mountain is a very awesome level with some cool secrets too. You have this well that you can blow up to reveal a nice little cave, a wall you can blow up to encounter the terrifying broccoli guy, and even Chill Bill's villain quest. Wait, who's Chill Bill? Well, he's this guy we fight in the level after this one, meaning Chompy Mountain gives us our first example of a villain quest being presented to us before we actually fight the villain. If I've counted correctly, there are 16 villain quests in the game which force you to replay the level. The most egregious of them all being Smokescream, whose quest is literally in the area before you fight him, and you can't go back after you defeated him. This is annoying, sure, but as I mentioned, these levels are on the shorter side, so replaying them shouldn't be too much of an inconvenience. After you've enjoyed playing through a lovely level, there's a nasty ass boss at the end that we can't avoid. Chompy Mage. Oh god. This guy is hilariously difficult even for nightmare mode. I mean, come on man, this is level 3, give me a minute to shake the rust off. With some miracle working from Wallop, and a little bit of help from Broccoli Guy, we managed to take him down without losing any lives. Phew, that's one of the tough bosses down, and a lot more to go. Phoenix Sanctuary is my favourite level in the game because of its aesthetic alone, but it's also really fun to explore. Lots of secret areas feel interconnected in a really interesting way, but because of all the vibrant colours and the busy background, these secrets can be quite difficult to keep track of. It definitely takes a step up in terms of difficulty. Sure, there's no Chompy Mage to deal with, but the basic enemies like the Shrednuts are quite dangerous, even resulting in our first death of the game. Well, if this happens, you only really have 2 options. First is to just restart the level right there and then, which will save all of the collectibles you've gotten up to that point. Or play through the rest of the level getting all of the secrets, and then speeding through the level an extra time to get the no death scroll. Either way, it would be so great if we avoided dying for the rest of the playthrough. Who am I kidding? Chef Zeppelin is up next, and it's another banger. The kitchen themed obstacles and areas are super unique. It's weird looking at how good the early game levels are compared to the later ones. Kinda gives off the impression that this game was rushed. Anyway, for the most part, none of these secrets will catch you off, apart from the only one I missed, that being the legendary treasure, which requires you to just blindly jump into the void with no rhyme or reason. Chopper's soul gem does the same thing, but at least you can actually see the soul gem before you jump. With this one, there's no indication whatsoever. Also, shout out to the winged sapphire, because for literal years I couldn't find it no matter how hard I tried. Good times. We get our first look at the vastly inferior Skystone Smash in this level, and it's just not as fun as the original. Also, you really don't get rewarded for playing it, since the only way you can unlock Skystones is by defeating villains. This just makes it weird that there are NPCs in previous levels that you can play Skystones with. Kinda like Bert and Quigley, except Bert and Quigley actually gave you Skystones, because what's the point if all they give you is money? Well anyway, now we have to go up against our next brutally difficult boss fight, that being Chef Pepperjack. Now I like to think that I'm pretty good against this guy. I mean, I've played this boss countless times on Nightmare mode, and in reality it isn't really that difficult if it weren't for the pepper bombs literally covering the entire area. But apart from some moments that feel luck based, it is all dependent on your skill and timing. Never mind, it's all luck based, it's stupid and unfair. After losing Snapshot, we finish him off with Wallop, and get used to seeing this guy when dealing with the big bosses, because I've been relying on him for years now. Something worth mentioning is that we encounter a bit of an inconvenience in this level, and it's to do with the villain quests. See, Chompy Mage and Broccoli Guy both have their quests in this level, and the problem is we can only bring one life villain into a level at a time. This is the only, and I mean the only benefit of having multiple traps of the same element. But do you want to know how many other times this scenario happens in the game? None. This is the only time. And it's not even a big problem, especially because we need to replay the level anyway for the no lives lost goal. So I just swapped to Broccoli Guy and got it done with. Speaking of no lives lost, we did manage to beat it this time. Admittedly with a little help from Chef Pepperjack, but if you want to see me suffer these boss fights without using any villains, I have a whole video for that. Rainfish Riviera is next, and there isn't much to go over on this one, apart from reminding you all that it is your duty to drop mags in the water at least one time. But hey, 5 times wouldn't hurt either. Do be on the lookout for drop-offs on edges because there's a few areas like this to find. Other than that, easy peasy. Monster Marsh and Telescope Towers are low-key 2 of the hardest levels in the game because of these annoying monster enemies, specifically the Ooglers and the Snozzlers. Yes, I've remembered their names out of pure hatred. Also, I-5 is ridiculously hard if you're using the wrong kind of Skylander. Like seriously, use a fast Skylander or you'll regret it. By the end I didn't lose any Skylanders, which was a relief, but I clearly didn't do very well with the collecting because I finished the level with only 1 pathetic star. This is definitely my worst performance in the challenge so far. Not only did I miss 3 collectibles, but also 3 areas, which is pretty crazy. To be fair, this level has some pretty tough secrets, my mind was just too busy dealing with the difficult fights to notice. I replayed the level and I found the missing areas in chests, but the hat was still nowhere to be found. And then I realised it was locked behind Fisticuff's villain quest, so I wouldn't be able to get it until a few levels later. It's kinda weird to be moving on from a level without getting 3 stars on it, but I have no choice. Not only is Telescope Towers just as difficult as Monster Marsh, but there's also some nasty secrets in this one. There's this button that activates once you defeat Pinata, which you have to backtrack to reach, and there's this really hidden drop off near the end of the level which I didn't know existed until very recently. I did manage to get every collectible first try though, apart from the story scroll, which annoyingly isn't even one of the hard secrets in the level. In terms of the fights, it's hard to say whether this level is harder than Monster Marsh or not, but I did die in this one unfortunately. It really doesn't feel like we get a break from these tough bosses because now we need to fight the Dreamcatcher, who is probably the hardest boss so far. Yeah, I'm just messing. This is very much a moment to catch our breath because you could probably beat this boss in your sleep. Of course, we did still break the dust earlier in the level and we still need to find the story scroll, so back in we go for 3 stars. It was close, but we did manage to beat Dreamcatcher again without dying. I honestly don't know how I got so lucky twice in a row, but that's Telescope Towers finished. I feel like we fall into a bit of a mushy middle patch after this level, starting with Mystic Mill, which is quite frankly a boring, forgettable level. Something that is interesting about this level is Shredknot's villain quest. This allows him to destroy all the wooden barricades seen throughout the level, which leads you to a lot of secret areas. On the topic of secrets, because this level's on the shorter side, they just decided to cram a bunch of collectibles into these Traptanium bridge areas, and can I just say, I'm getting a little bit sick of being forced to use Trapmasters 24/7. The saddest part is that as a whole, I think the cores have more interesting ideas and movesets than the Trapmasters, but I'm never able to use them for more than a couple minutes at a time. And sure, this isn't the first time that a Skylanders game has these kind of obstacles, but in Giants they were spread out and nowhere near as frequent, which gave you a chance to play as the other Skylanders. And even the same can be said for Swap Force. As I digress, we get Mystic Mill out of the way. The Secret Sewers isn't a bad level, but there really isn't a lot going on. There's a decent secret here and there, but apart from that, the only thing I was interested in was capturing Fisticuffs so I could go back to Monster Marsh. I did die during the final arena fight. I mean, you gotta remember that we are on Nightmare mode. So after my second try I got 3 stars on this level, and then went back to get 3 stars on Monster Marsh too. Willikin Workshop is next, and I really did forget how tough these levels get. The Willikin bombers and the spinny fellas are really difficult to get past when they put them in tight spaces or on these conveyor belts. What I'm trying to say is I died and don't make fun of me. Because I was only about halfway through the level when it happened, I decided to just restart the thing and go back through. So after getting back on track with Wallop, it was time for our next Doom Raider. To be honest, I wasn't scared to fight Dr. Crankcase for a couple of reasons. Firstly, he just isn't as hard as Chompy Mage or Pepperjack because there isn't a ton of things to focus on at once. Secondly, his goo barrels can give you food, so as long as you let the barrels into the goo, you have a pretty steady food supply. And lastly, the idiot can get hit by his own obstacles. I thought doctors were meant to be smart. Well, after all that trash talk, I'm glad I beat it with no deaths. That could have been embarrassing. Yes, I can beat a Doom Raider without dying, but not a wooden fidget spinner. Leave me alone. But it turns out that we missed an area which has Dreamcatcher's villain quest in it. On that topic, if you're ever wondering where a villain quest is, just look at the wanted poster in the hub world. It shows you which level every villain's quest is in, and the ones with completed villain quests get a golden border. Ooh. Time Town is probably the last really good level in the main story. It's a super charming level with decent secrets. Speaking of secrets, Dr. Crankcase's villain quest allows him to destroy all of these dioramas, similar to Shredknot in the Mystic Mill, so keep a lookout for these as you play through. Unfortunately, I got soft locked during this fight and had to restart the level. Twice. The first time might have been because I triggered the diorama cutscene before defeating all the enemies, which might have messed things up. And the second time was because I knocked an enemy into the void, which for some reason didn't kill it, so it just stayed alive down there forever. This has always been the glitchiest level in the game for me, but still not a nice surprise to get soft locked twice in a row. But restarting made me notice that I'd missed the story scroll at the start of the level, so it was kind of a blessing in disguise. I finally got past the fight and found the secret crosscrow area where I somehow managed to die at the exact same time as crosscrow. Well, that's another playthrough of the level. Great. This time I actually managed to get to the end of the level, and can you believe it, we not only failed the enemy goal because we didn't refight crosscrow, but we also missed a chest, meaning we need to play through for a 4th time. It's all seeming to go downhill for us, isn't it? Well, apparently not, because Future of Skylands went very well. Okay, don't look at the results of my first run. I know it looks bad, but you can't freestart this level first try because of Wolfgang's quest. So I did the really confusing light gate, which was right at the start of the level, and got the legendary treasure, which was right next to Wolfgang's quest anyway. And since I epically destroyed Wolfgang with no deaths on my first run, we only had to play about half of the level before leaving with 3 stars. See? I am awesome, it all went to plan, we are so back. Operation Troll Rocket Steal is a straight line. As long as you aren't blindfolded, you shouldn't be able to miss any collectibles because it's pretty hard to hide anything in this level. But we still couldn't beat it first try because of Bone Chompy's villain quest. But we'll be back. I swear by it. Sky Highlands is next and there is a lot of fighting in this one. Whether you're in a jet or a turret or just playing normally, it's quite action packed. Speaking of turret sections, well, they're turret sections. Even though Trap Team has the best turret sections by far, they still aren't amazing. So I suggest doing Threat Pack's Villain Quest as he upgrades all the turrets in the level, which makes it a lot more enjoyable. The only problem with this is that if you die and have to restart the level, you'll have to do his quest again for the turret upgrade. And heads up, you might have to restart the level once or twice or 5 times because it's not easy. In terms of the enemies, it's one of the hardest levels for sure, but funnily enough, Tyquon Crow was super easy. Well, I don't think there's much more to talk about, so let's move on to the Golden Desert. Apart from the Golden Queen deciding to turn Callie into gold instead of, you know, the Skylander, this level isn't very entertaining. I mean, if any level was to be bare, it should be the desert one, so I'll give them credit there. But in all seriousness, this level sucks, and no amount of sand or cacti can excuse that. One of the only interesting things about this level is that it has the weirdest secret in the game. After you beat the arena, if you don't interact with the Golden Callie and instead go up this fallen block, then you'll discover a secret area, and it's literally an empty room. Yeah, it counts as an area, but not even gold or anything. Very strange. After going back for the air gate, that's another level down. So now that we have Bone Chompy, we head back to Operation Troll Rocket Steal to get the missing hat. And funnily enough, it turns out that I was a little bit too good at fighting on my first run, because apparently I didn't give the trolls enough time to spawn in before moving to the next area, meaning that I actually failed the enemy goal. This time I gave the poor trolls a chance to appear before destroying them and getting the enemy goal no problem. After that quick detour, we carry on with Lair of the Golden Queen. This level is full of sneakiness. You've got secret floor tile puzzles that reveal secret areas, secret pits you get to by deliberately falling into the void, secret this, secret that, there's a lot of secrets. But I do think that works quite well with the Indiana Jones tempo vibe that we have. And the sneakiest thing of all is that you're so concentrated on the upcoming Golden Queen fight that you totally forget how difficult the enemies in this level are. Like, when I say these enemies are tough, I mean the hardest in the entire game tough. Just look at how long it took me to kill one enemy by itself. If it were up to me, the person who created the Eyeball Dragon would be doing jail time. But nothing could prepare me for the Golden Queen fight, because even though it's my favourite boss in the entire series, I still really suck at it. I've said it before, but without Wallop, I really don't know what I would do against this boss. He's definitely her biggest counter, so take that into consideration. Even with him by my side, I still couldn't keep up with her bullet hell nonsense, and unfortunately I was murdered in cold blood. But don't worry about dying, because it's impossible to freestart this level in one go anyway. This is because there are 2 key gates in the level with a collectible behind both of them. One of the gates needs 1 key and the other needs 2, but we only get 2 keys to use. I always found this weird because if you use the key to get the Winged Sapphire, then you'll just be stuck with a key floating above your head for the entire level. Anyways, take 2, this time we really don't want to die. I definitely did better this time around, but I will admit Bad Juju came in quite clutch a couple of times. I do wish I'd used her a little bit less in the fight because it felt like a bit of a cheap win. But a win is a win. Golden Queen is dead, yippee. Well, it's not been easy, but here we are at the ultimate weapon, the big finale. Like a few of the final levels in this series, the actual level really isn't the highlight here. There's no crazy hard fights or really any interesting level design, it's pretty straightforward. But I can't complain too much because I know what's coming next, and I'm going to put all of my energy into it if I want to stand a chance. Traptanium Chaos. This is the real main event of the game. I was doing quite well trying to keep up with his attack patterns and bullet hell, and I was getting very close to the end of the fight, but as time went on it just became too much for me and Snapshot went down. But I'd gotten this far, I thought I may as well finish the fight, and after beating the level, something strange happened. Now that we've beaten story mode, every level in the game has a bonus 4th star to achieve, the difficult dares. Well, they're not really that difficult, but we still have to do them. Firstly, the time goal is back, because of course it is, it could never truly leave me, could it? You also need to complete all of the villain quests in the level, and don't worry if you already did the quest before unlocking the 4th star, you won't need to do them again, that would really suck. What we do need to do again though is the no deaths goal. This is because there's a new goal where we're not allowed to switch Skylander for the entire level. This means that we can't die, or obviously we'll need to switch Skylander, so it's basically just a no deaths goal again. So in retrospective, I probably should have sped through the levels to unlock the 4th star and then completed everything in one go. But there's nothing we can do about it now. We just have to suck it up and beat all the Doom Raiders without dying yet again. When it comes to the regular levels, there really isn't much to talk about. The time goal is not strict, so we got them all first try, especially with the help of High 5. And we've beaten them all deathless already, so doing that again wasn't a problem. The 4th star did remind me that there's a couple of villain quests that I'd forgotten to go back and get. Sorry for making you wait so long, Chillbo, that's my bad. However, in terms of not dying, the bosses are a whole other story. I felt a little bit weird about using villains in these fights, and I'm sure a lot of you did as well. So even though we can use villains because it doesn't count as switching, I decided to not use any of them during any of these fights. And you know what? It was difficult. Very difficult. But a fun difficult. A difficult that I knew I could master, and after immense practice, did master. I beat Chompy Mage, Pepperjack, Wolfgang, and even Golden Queen deathless and with no villains. Chaos though, oh my glumshanks, it's awful. It is just the hardest thing in the entire series. Like, I cannot stress enough how long I spent on this boss before eventually giving in and using Chaos to help me. Don't complain unless you wanted this video to come out in 2040. To be fair, I didn't use him for the entirety of the boss, only during a couple of tight spots. I am still proud of beating this boss without dying, even if I had some help. But the important thing is I've completed all of the levels with 4 stars and the fireworks are back, let's go. So now we head on to the 4 expansion pack levels, which do count towards your 100% save file. The good thing about these levels is that we already have the 4th star available, so we won't have to replay them an extra time. So the Midnight Museum is truly a bad level, no other way of putting it. The level manages to have absolutely no substance, but also be one of the longer levels in the game. There is not a single interesting thing to talk about here. They even miss with the level's design, everything is so dull. Not to even mention the pinball sections, which are supposed to be this level's main feature. This one specifically is so annoying and impossible to control that it made me fail my first timed run. The Nightshade fight is actually alright though, a lot better than I remember it being. There's not much more to say than that, so let's grab the 4 stars and get the hell out of here. So now that we have that out of the way, it's time to move on to Sunscraper's Spire. And this level just makes Midnight Museum look even worse. It has interesting visuals, memorable areas and secrets. Oh yeah, and you know how Midnight Museum has absolutely no new enemies? Sunscraper's Spire has 7. That's right, 7. I mean technically 6 because the spinning Cyclops were shoehorned into the future of Skylands because the game's rushed and they didn't have time to meet new enemies for that level, but they are clearly meant to be exclusive to Sunscraper's Spire. Also, yes, one of the new enemies is a chomp chest who fires a Gatling gun from his mouth, which is awesome and totally counts as a new enemy. Anyway, this level is cool and one of my personal favourites in the game. It's also pretty hard, especially with all the different enemies to try and keep up with, and I wouldn't blame you for dying in the Luminous fight as well. But as long as you get a hang of the enemies and also watch carefully for secrets during the light beam puzzles, then you should be all set. Up next is the Nightmare Express, and I don't really remember anything about this level apart from the train section at the end, and I kinda get why. The level isn't bad at all, it's just extremely okay. It brings back Noodles, which I always thought was cool, but for some reason they didn't make him a trappable villain. First time playing through this level, I did terribly. I didn't die a single time, but I missed 3 different secret areas and 5 collectibles, including an elemental gate. And just like that, Nightmare Express has been crowned my worst performance in the entire challenge so far. But it turns out that Log Goblin's quest gives us a hat, and the Trolling Thunder quest leads to not only a hat but also a chest, so I really didn't do as bad as it looks. Mirror of Mystery is a really cool level. If you've been keeping up, you know how much I love mini hub worlds and levels, and this one is jam-packed with collectibles to grab. But after this area, the level feels like a boring straight path similar to Operation Troll Rocket Steel. I still think the level's premise is funny and clever, but it's still a little bit underwhelming altogether. Nothing about the level is particularly difficult, but there are 2 secrets to be careful with. The first is the Chompy fight, which you can block yourself off from if you move the blocks in the wrong way. And the second is the sneaky chest in the water gate, which took me ages to find. Like seriously, I got so desperate looking for this chest that I was picking up boulders with a giant in hopes of finding it. That's how bad it got. This is a good reminder to always be super alert in the gates because you don't want to be replaying them if you've missed something. But after that was dealt with, we get our final 4 stars on our final level in Trap Team, giving us 22 lovely golden levels and a grand total of 88 stars. So since we've 100% completed the story mode, which also gives you a golden border on the story icon and a star on your save file, we are unofficially on to step 2. To get our true 100% save file, we still have the arena fights and the Chaos Doom challenges to get through. So let's talk to Brock and get things started. I don't know if this is a completely rogue opinion or not, but I feel like the arena mode has gotten better with every new game. It is close between Trap Team and Swap Force, but these ones are the perfect length while Swap Force's ones are just a bit too long. Every arena feels really different from one another, plus some of the challenges are so creative this time around. I don't even care that some challenges are repeated because it still feels really varied. To be honest, I don't think this arena mode really had to do much to be fun because Trap Team already has very enjoyable combat, but I can still appreciate the effort they put into this. Plus, once you beat the game, you can unlock Brock's super secret Rumble Club from Oric, which is basically just the other arenas on steroids. There's some ridiculous obstacles in these arenas that turns everything into complete chaos, which is funny because we're not onto that part yet. Each arena has 4 challenges, which I think is pretty much the perfect amount, and the last one of each gives us an exclusive hat, which is cool. I mean, I've gotten so many hats in this challenge already that the novelty of collecting them has completely worn off. So now we just have the Chaos Doom challenges to do, and I wish I could say I saved the best for last, but no. The Chaos Doom challenge is simple. Enemies come from the other side of the map and you have to stop them from destroying the mystery box of doom, which is on your side. To help you, there are building modes between enemy waves where you can build and upgrade turrets that attack enemies. That is the basic premise and it sounds pretty awesome, doesn't it? Unfortunately, there are some major flaws that really ruined the whole experience for me. To start with, the whole tower defense aspect kinda goes out the window when you play on Nightmare mode. You see, the enemies don't just target the mystery box. If your turrets are closer, which they obviously will be, then they'll target them instead. Heavy hitting enemies deal so much damage that they can practically destroy your turret in one hit, and there really isn't much you can do about it. Add on the fact that most turrets can only be built by a Skylander of a specific element, forcing you to constantly switch Skylander. And when there are 4 or more turrets to build at once, which are also constantly getting destroyed, it just becomes too much effort for what it's worth. I think this mode would have been so much more fun if enemies couldn't destroy your turrets and maybe there was a different system for upgrading them, but there's not much point thinking about that now. Also, the mystery box of doom is really not that scary. It just reveals a big enemy that chases you around, but they kill nearby enemies when it jumps out of the box, making them pretty helpful in most cases. Oh yeah, and after you defeat the big enemy, another mystery box of doom is sent in, so there really aren't any consequences to letting the enemies destroy it. Since there are no extra requirements like not dying or anything, you can only really lose these challenges if you run out of Skylanders. I don't think that's gonna happen. Or switch the game off from sheer boredom. Oh yeah, that's my next problem. Each level increases the number of waves until you're having to sink an hour of your day just to complete a single level. It really ruins what is a fun concept by dragging it out way too much. And a very solid amount of that time is spent listening to Chaos constantly yapping. It's nearly as bad as the Spyro's Adventure boss fights. Last thing I wanted to mention is that this is easily the most unpolished section of the game. Not just silly visual bugs, normal enemies will straight up receive brain damage on the spot and not attack anything. It's crazy. Once again, you get a hat at the end, and once again, I don't really care anymore. So in conclusion, the 50 stars I earned from these challenges weren't all that enjoyable in the end. But you know what is enjoyable? Finally completing step 1 and getting the truly breathtaking 100% golden 3-star save file. Hell yeah. So you know how I said there isn't a step 2 for Trap Team? Well, I lied for dramatic effect, sue me. There are a few things that we can still do here, and first up is by far the wackiest, that being the infamous Skeletone Showdown. Remember? The completely random rhythm minigames where you rap battle against your favourite NPCs? No? Well, I have a really soft spot for these minigames. Definitely nothing to write home about, they are super basic, but they're still dumb fun and very charming. So all we have to do is win a medal against all 6 of the NPCs. Funnily enough, these medals are not earned by doing well during the actual minigames. You can actually do as terribly as you want. As long as you complete the skeleton solo in each game, then you'll get the medal. All you have to do is press buttons on your controller as fast as you can to fill up the music meter before the time runs out. And on expert mode, these solos are pretty much impossible without help. I had to get my brother to help me as we mashed all the buttons on my controller, praying that it wouldn't break from all the abuse it was getting. Even with his help, we had to try multiple different strategies to beat Chaos, but after some sore fingers we managed to get all the medals on expert difficulty. Next thing to do is Hoodsicle and Chaos's villain quests. The only reason these are in step 2 is because you can 100% the game without doing these quests. This is because they're the only 2 quests that aren't found in levels and in the hub world instead. Chaos's one is very disappointing. You'd think that they would do something interesting for his quest, but it's one of those just talk to an NPC ones and nothing else. Hoodsicle's one is at least interesting because after completing it you can buy hats from Hatterson. Yeah, that's right, he's back. Probably because of how much money he made off me and Giants. Oh yeah, so this is what a disassembled hat box looks like. I don't like it. So that is our wanted poster fully completed. Man, they really like the golden borders in this game, don't they? Next up are a new addition to the series, being trinkets. Sure, they're just silly little accessories for your Skylander, but sometimes silly little things are cool. like Wee Ruptor. You can get them from the Protomaster boxes and you can buy some from Ark, but a good handful of them can only be found in the secret areas of the Academy. This takes me back to the good old days of hunting for winged sapphires in Spyro's Adventure. Man, I should play this game again. It's been too long. Make sure you really do search every nook and cranny of the Skylanders Academy, because by the time you finish the game, it is a very big place with loads of rooms and secret areas. On the topic of the hub world, the legendary treasures are pretty cool in this game. When you find one in a level, there will be a specific place in the Academy where you can see the treasure you collected. This makes the place a whole lot livelier when you've collected them all. There are a lot of secret 2D sections to get through, which all give you a trinket at the end. One of them even requires you to be a mini to access it. Well, at least they have some sort of purpose. After that, you should have all 33 of them to mess around with. So now all we have left are 127 missing hats. Yes, out of the 244 hats in the game, we are missing practically half of them. Bear in mind, I've bought all the hats from Oric and Hatterson, got all the hats from the Elemental Gates and Villain Quests, all of the hats from increasing your Protomaster rank, and the hat from beating Nightmare Mode, so how on earth are we still missing so many? Well, I hate to tell you this, but you need to transfer all 127 of the hats from previous games. Ouch. So I thought the easiest way to do this would be to boot up our now fully completed Swap Force save file because it has all the 127 hats that we need. So all I had to do was put a hat on a Skylander and then use that Skylander and Trap Team to transfer the hat. 127 times. Yeah, there is no way to sugarcoat it, this is probably one of the worst things I've ever had to do. But at least I have 127 Skylanders from the first 3 games, meaning I only had to do one trip from Swap Force to Trap Team. A small issue I had was that for some reason Swap Force has 147 hats, even though Trap Team only needs 127. I guess this means some of the hats from the first 3 games are actually obtainable in Trap Team for whatever reason. Unfortunately, I don't know which ones are in Trap Team and which ones aren't, but somehow I still managed to get 147 Skylanders together. This means that I can still transfer them all in one go without having to worry about any that are missing. So after a very boring couple of hours, we finally have every hat in Trap Team. Wait, what? So, what is going on with this hat? I didn't recognise it, I didn't know the name of it, I didn't know how to get it, and I was very confused. I was in a bit of a pickle, and as always, I turned to Serbian Skylands in my greatest moments of need, and he told me that I needed Winterfest Lobstar. Well, every day is a school day because I learned that just like the seasonal variants in Swap Force, Winterfest Lobstar gives us an exclusive hat. That actually makes a lot of sense, but still, screw you Winterfest Lobstar. So after ordering a Skylander I had no intention of ever getting just for a single hat, I can safely say that I have done everything in Trap Team that there is to do. Wait, so where's the hat? So, in a crazy turn of events, Serbian Skylands was wrong. Remember this day, people. Remember this day. So if that's not how we get this Christmas themed hat, then how on earth do we get it? It's the Santa hat. Found in Spyro's Adventure, Giants, and even Swap Force. In my defense, they completely changed how this hat looks in Trap Team, so I had no idea it was one of the ones from the previous games. But after all that shenanigans, I transferred it over and finally collected the last hat in the game. So in Crypt Crusher fashion, I made that way harder than it had to be due to a lack of common sense, and was forced to buy coloured plastic that I didn't end up needing anyway. But we have without a fraction of a doubt completed everything inside of Trap Team that there is to complete. Of course, all that's left to do is step 3, so let's not waste any more time. Finally, we have step 3, and as always, most of these trophies are awarded to you just for doing 100% completion. But each main story level has a bonus trophy for doing something silly, just like Giants. I had no problem with any of these. In fact, I did most of them without even knowing it, but there is one trophy that caused me excruciating pain. But first, let's talk about some cool ones. Firstly, we have a trophy in level 4 which we can earn by destroying one of the ships that the enemies jump off of. I always loved doing this because it kind of felt like cheating because all the enemies automatically die. But it turns out the game actually rewards you for doing it, which is pretty awesome. There's one for getting every coin during the swamp section of Monster March, and I love this one because I went out of my way to do it just in case there was some sort of reward, and well, there was. Similarly, you get a trophy for destroying every shield panel during the jet sequence before you fight Wolfgang. Only difference is I actually never thought about doing this until I saw that I had to. Okay, sadly none of the other ones are really worth mentioning, so I suppose I should just get to the horrible trophy. The bonus trophy in Telescope Towers is very simple. In this little area here, there are 12 golden balls. Simply roll them all off this slope here and you get the trophy. I had to retry this 4 times, which means playing through half of the level I'd already played countless times just to reach this area again 4 times. The first time I tried to move the balls by hitting them, which destroyed them instantly. That was an honest mistake, I'll put my hands up there. The second time I was doing much better until I started running on the top of the ball like some sort of circus clown. This then shattered the ball because, I don't know, Crypt King needs to go on a diet. The third time I was certain that trophy was mine. There was really nothing standing in my way. And then one of the balls decided to explode when it touched the pillar, which none of the other ones did ever. but Attempt 4 finally brought me peace, especially since that was the final task of the entire game. Thank God for that. Okay, 4 games down, 2 more to go. Superchargers is really weird. No, I'm not talking about the cars or the NPCs' mouths moving in sync with the dialogue, which is really creepy by the way. I'm talking about how they completely changed how 100% completion works. There are still 3 stars in each level, but it's completely different to the previous games. Now each star is achieved by completing one of the 3 vehicle missions in that level. And that's it. No enemy goal, no time goal, nothing. Thank you. Hey, I'm not dissing the way things used to work, but being able to fully complete a level in one go is really refreshing, especially as the 5th game in the challenge. There are still a few collectibles in levels, most importantly the slot machine chests, because there is a little counter for them at the end of each level, so you do have to get all of them for 100%. The other ones, like regular chests and hat boxes, don't have counters, so you don't have to get them, but they do give you soul gems, winged sapphires, hats, legendary treasures, and chaos diaries, which are basically this game's version of story scrolls. There are also tons of vehicle mods to find, specifically in vehicle sections. Once again, not essential for completing a level, but it will be if you want to 100% the game as a whole. Lastly, you can find pinatas lying around, but they only ever give you XP, gold, or stardust, so getting them is not really that important. What is stardust? Well, it's the resource that fills up your Portal Master rank, of course. You get stardust for doing things like earning stars in levels and races, completing puzzle locks, and a few other things. Also, keeping up with the weirdness is the fact that this game does not have a Nightmare exclusive hat for some reason. We still need to play on Nightmare mode, but there's nothing stopping us from doing it on a separate file this time, so we can save ourselves some hassle there. The annoying thing about Superchargers is there is no percentage or even mention of 100%, so it's pretty much impossible to draw a line between step 1 and step 2. So just to make things simpler for ourselves, step 1 will focus solely on getting all of the level stars, along with the slot machine chests of course, and then getting all of the racing stars. Then we'll save everything after that for step 2. I know it's not conventional, but blame the game, not me. Well, I think after all that explaining, we're finally up to speed with how this game works. Ha 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 ha. So let's get started. Level 1 is a pretty smooth introduction to the way things work now. The chests are well hidden, but still not too hard to find, and the vehicle missions weren't tricky either. I would like to mention that on the vehicle spectrum, I'm very much in the middle. A lot of people dislike the vehicle sections, but I don't mind them too much. Some of them are actually pretty fun, but other times they can drag on and feel a bit stiff to control. But the sky sections always hit for me. I really enjoy them. Including this level's one, it really shows you what the sky sections can offer. It's a shame that they are the shortest sections of the game by far. Oh well, that's the first level done and dusted. Cloudbreaver's Crag was an absolute blast to play through. It's so exploration heavy and even feels open world in some areas. There's even an area where completing the sea mission lowers the water level, which allows you to access secret areas that were previously blocked by the water, and I think that's really sick. About midway through this level we encounter our first elemental gate. I know that a lot of you are probably thinking, what? And yes, it's a much forgotten aspect of the game, maybe because they were added post-launch, who knows. Anyways, these gates are definitely taking us into step 2 territory, so I won't talk about them just yet. However, one thing I will say is that I recommend not doing these gates in the levels, as you can just access them all in the hub world very easily. With the 2 optional vehicle missions, the levels are long enough as it is, and I'm a Swap Force fan so I know what I'm talking about. Speaking of gates, there's a brand new type of them introduced in this level called the Supercharger gates. I made that name up, but it makes a lot of sense because they're the only type of Skylander that can activate them. They are essentially elemental gates without an elemental theme tied to them. Just a bonus area which will always lead you to a slot machine chest at the end. A little bit of supercharging later and we finish the level. And I missed a chest, god damn it. Luckily this game is particularly generous with its collectibles because you can actually see how many chests you're missing from each chapter in a level. This means you'll always have a rough idea of where the missing collectible is, and you're never having to replay too much of the level to get it. Plus we're keeping the not having to beat the whole level if you miss a collectible feature, which makes it even better. I won't lie, this could be the most stress-free game to 100% complete I've ever played. Heading into Cloud Kingdom, the fogginess of the level can make some secrets a bit harder to spot, but it's still nothing too difficult as long as you take your time going through each area. The mods, which are these little toolboxes, definitely have the potential to be annoying. As I said before, they are only obtainable in vehicle sections, meaning if you miss one, it's unlikely you'll be able to turn around and get it, unless it's incredibly close behind you. For example, in this level's Sky mission, I didn't realise this mod was sitting in the bottom corner until it was too late. I was worried I'd have to replay the chapter again, but fortunately I circled back around to the same spot and was able to grab it. It was only much later into my playthrough I realised that the mods aren't specifically locked to a single section in a single level. A mod that you missed in the last level can still be one that you get in the next level, and if you replay a mission you've already done, then new mods will be there for you to collect. So if you miss a mod, really don't worry about it because it will pop up someplace else later. Speaking of vehicle sections, I died against this Storm Sequencer mini-boss, but it doesn't matter. I didn't mention it at the start, but there isn't any no deaths goal in sight either, so things like this don't matter at all, which is pretty cool. No deaths to Lord Stratosphere though, mainly because the bosses in this game are pretty easy. Land of the Undead is a pretty underwhelming and easy level with an easy boss. Not much more to say about it really. The only interesting thing about this level comes after it, that being Pandergast. That's right ladies and gentlemen, we have unlocked the racing. 126 stars, all in the racing mode. Well, the absolute agony and pain that I know I'll be subjected to soon can sizzle in the back of my mind for the rest of the playthrough. Great. Next up is Battle Brawl Island. This level really isn't interesting when looking at our challenge because it only has 2 chests and 1 star. This is one of the 3 levels in this game that don't have vehicle missions. Well, one of them technically is in a vehicle, but it still only has 1 star. And because there's only one small area with collectibles and the rest of the level is pointless fighting, there's not too much to talk about here. However, just like Land of the Undead, after completing the level, we're introduced to something quite important, and that is the shop. Essentially anything that you can find in a hat box or a treasure chest, you can find in the shop. But the main thing you'll be getting here are hats, mainly because of the sheer number of them. And if you want to have every single one like I do, the shop is going to become your best friend. The shop restocks every time you enter a level, so if you have a lot of dosh, there's no limit to how many things you can buy, so go wild. Wait, is that the insanely rare UFO hat? The hat that required a ridiculously expensive piece of cardboard to unlock, being sold in this shop for 320 gold. Bellpunk Library is pretty cool. Obviously with most of the level being 2-dimensional, the secret areas aren't exactly hard to find. I do love exploring the library itself though, which is where most of the chests are hidden, and it's a whole lot of fun. I also did not remember there being 2 secret books you could go into to find chests, which was a nice addition. I'll admit the vehicle sections in this level are not the best, but we still got through it with a couple more mods under our belt too. Gladfly Glades is actually breathtaking. I don't know how anyone can deny that this game has the best graphics in the series. I'm sorry, but if you think it's any of the other games, then you're actually delusional. Anyways, I didn't have any trouble finding anything, but I think that's because it's a genuinely fun level to explore, so I didn't want to rush any of it. Clocks HQ is another banger of a level with great secrets. Damn, this game is actually hitting the spot right now. The trickiest thing to find in this level is easily the Skystones NPC. Oh yeah, I should probably talk about the Skystones. Yes, Skystones is back, and they're treating the stones like actual collectibles that you can find just like Giants did. You can find them just like every other collectible, in chests, in the shop, and so on. But just like Giants, there's an NPC in each level that you can play Skystones with, and these NPCs give you one specific Skystone that only they can reward you with, but only one this time. You can't keep bullying them over and over again like I did with Bert in Junkyard Isles. Those were good times, man. This means if you miss an NPC, you will be a Skystone down, and this could potentially be frustrating if you don't remember which level you didn't play Skystones in. Luckily I found this dude first try and grabbed Count Moneybone's Skystone. Everything else about the level was good fun, until the boss fight against Cluck, which I would rather not go into detail on. After this level, Glumshanks tells us about the wishing well in the hub world. This wishing well is another way of getting random collectibles, but to use the wishing well you'll have to throw in a wish stone which can be found lying around in levels. After you finish the game you'll have quite a hefty amount of these stones, so it is a big help in getting everything that you need for 100%. Monstrous Isles was easy, and since there was way too much to talk about to fit into the intro segment of this game, I think now is a good time to talk more about the collectibles and how weird they are. They are completely random. There are several secret spots in levels where you can randomly find a treasure chest, a hat box, a piñata, or a diamond. The last two being a lot less helpful in the grand scheme of things. But it doesn't just end there, because what you find in these chests and boxes is also completely random, and that goes for the slot machine chest too. There is no specific chest that gives you a specific thing in a level. Could be a random soul gem, could be a random hat, who knows. The only way to guarantee you get a particular thing is if you open a lot of these chests. Like, a lot. And open a lot we shall. Here comes Ridepocalypse Demo Derby, which is the hardest level in the game if you suck at vehicle sections like I do. Anyways, just like Battle Brawl Island, this level has a couple of collectibles at the start, and then the rest is just fighting. There's this cool Skystones gauntlet which gives you a chest plus the Lord Stratosphere Skystone. Not that I really wanted it, because look at him. But after that, there's nothing more to say. Vault of the Ancients is next, and this is easily one of the highlights of the game. It's quite a big level too, so getting everything in one go did seem quite overwhelming. But if you use your magnet powers wisely, then nothing should be too difficult to grab. It turns out that the only issue I had was dying in the vehicle sections, because they're so much harder than the regular fighting. But of course, that's not really an issue since this game does not care about who dies. No empathy at all. It's terrible. Bandit Train is our final 1-star level, and the slightly annoying thing about this one is that unlike the other two, it's structured like a real level, and since the whole thing is only one chapter, if you miss a chest you'll have to do it all again. Why am I complaining about this when I played through Swap Force? Anyways, the chest I was missing is pretty stupid. I mean, yeah, the coins being underneath the platform is a pretty good indication that there's something down there, but when I'm getting blasted by cannons, there are more important things to think about than the crown jewels being upside down. Well, here we are on the final level, and this is somehow one of the easiest in the game. The combat and the collectibles gave me absolutely no issues. Neither did Chaos now that I think about it, so I guess that's the end of the story mode. I think I did pretty well, considering I got everything on most levels on the first try.
You didn't really think this was over, did you? You can't defeat me!
Anyways, that's all 13 stars and epic chests. Wait, they're called epic chests? But they're whatever. Now we swiftly move on to the racing mode. Yes, I've been looking forward to this for quite some time now. All 126 stars. But before we start, I should mention the land, sea and sky trophies that are absolutely required to get all of these stars. Not only do each of them unlock 2 new tracks, but also the villain modes, which we'll get into later. If you're not interested in the racing, do not buy these because that's all they add to the experience. Wow, the non-vehicle portion of this game is feeling even more neglected than it already was. And it wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the price of the goddamn land trophy. The others are completely fine, but this one decided it had to be better than everyone else. Well, screw you. In fact, let's do all the land stuff now to get it out of the way. So each vehicle terrain has 5 different modes we have to tackle. The first one is basic racing. We simply have to come first in a race against 7 other players. Now if you want 3 stars in these races, you need to play on the hardest difficulty, but in this case it really wasn't too bad. As a whole, I feel like the races take a little bit too long to finish. Each one lasts around 4 minutes, which can be frustrating if you lose and have to do it again. But with the Gold Rusher's OP secondary attack, I made it through each one first try. Next is the time trials, and it's the easiest mode by far because there's no chance of anyone sabotaging you last minute. No, that'll come later, trust me. All you have to do is beat 1 lap of a track within the time goal. It doesn't matter how horrible you do in the other 2 laps, only one of them matters. That's not to say that the times themselves are easy, you do have to be precise with your steering and pick the best routes. Next up are the villain pursuits, where you have to take out a boss before they complete 3 laps of their track. Okay, forget what I said about the time trials, this is the easiest mode. All you have to do is stay behind the boss and continuously deal damage. I defeated all 4 of them before they even reached the final lap. In fact, only 2 of them even bothered to attack me, and one of them is Dragon Hunter and I don't even know who that is. But hey, that's another easy 12 stars. Now we move on to the Villain Cup, which acts like a Grand Prix in Mario Kart. We race on all 4 tracks, and whoever did the best in the races overall gets first place. And as the name suggests, your opponents are mostly villains, even a few that you can't play as, which is kinda strange. So, I hate this. I hate it down to my very core. For some reason, the Villain Cup is 1 billion times harder than the regular races. It feels like no matter how well I race through a track, I'll get knocked out by one of the strong ass villains, and it just comes down to luck whether it ruins the entire race or not. And the most annoying part is that if you go through all 4 races and don't come first, you have to do all 4 races again, and again, and again until you get lucky enough to not have your first place instantly drop to 8th place. Eventually I did realise my mistake is that I was using a villain instead of a supercharger. The villain vehicles are better than the supercharger vehicles, but only at base level. Since your vehicle upgrades actually carry over to the racing mode, you will be way stronger than your villain opponents, which will make it a ton easier. If you want a real challenge, try and win this cup with just a villain. It is not easy. So I went in again as the Gold Rusher and absolutely obliterated everyone. The other races were so far behind me, I didn't even have to worry about getting attacked. And the last mode is the Mirror Cup, where we once again have to beat all 4 races one after the other. Only this time the tracks are mirrored, which actually did throw me off a bit. But it really is just the same thing, so another easy one with the Gold Rusher. God, I love this thing. Now for the sea races, and while I don't hate them, I found them way too long. And consider the fact that I have to go through each of them a minimum of 5 times. That's a bit of an issue. Mystical Vault is the worst offender here, taking me over 5 minutes to get through. This is even more annoying in the time trials because you can beat the time on the first lap, but you still have to complete the other 2 laps even though there's no point. This was an endurance test more than anything else because the times are on the same difficulty level as the land races. I'll admit the Frozen Fossil Festival was a little bit scary since the race is just 1 big lap. This meant I had 1 chance to beat it or I'd have to start the race again. Luckily we got past with 15 milliseconds to spare. So now on to Villain Pursuit, and it's the exact same strategy as before. It's actually even easier here because the tracks are so damn long. The Villain Cup and Mirror Cup weren't difficult, just mentally draining. I'm glad I knew about using a supercharger instead of a villain because I actually cannot imagine how much pain having to redo these would cause. Anyway, last but not least we have the Sky Races. These ones are still too long but nowhere near as bad as the sea ones, so I'll count my blessings. As you'd expect, the regular races, time trials and boss pursuits had absolutely nothing notable to talk about. If I'm being honest, I'm struggling to keep my energy up when I've already had to endure so much mediocre racing. Luckily I was able to blaze through the 2 cups with the Chaos Trophy. Yeah, this bad bad boy is not required for the challenge, but he made the last half an hour of this racing a whole lot easier. So thank you, Chaos. I love you. I can't say it was pretty, but we've gotten all 126 racing stars, which officially concludes step 1. I mean, according to me. I'm just winging it at this point. Okay. Deep breath. The worst is past, so let's go over everything we have left to do. There's a lot of things left to do, and it all pretty much boils down to the emblems. I don't know if they're just calling them that to suppress my PTSD from the accolades, but let's face it, these are accolades. I got given a lovely break from the Entrap team, but now they're back for their revenge. Luckily they aren't too bad this time, there's just a lot of them to get. As usual, a good chunk of them will be unlocked naturally, like earning all the stars in racing mode, getting stars from missions, and collecting soul gems. But for the most part, you'll have a board full of things that you're not even close to completing. For example, getting every single hat ever made in the Skylanders universe. Yes, all 266 of them. I think the best place to start is with the emblem for beating the game on Nightmare mode. Interestingly, this game lets you change to Nightmare mode on your current save file instead of having to make a new one, which does save us a little bit of time. So, out of curiosity, I wanted to see if beating the final chapter of a level would count as beating the whole level, and it actually does. I was absolutely not expecting this to work, and just wanted to be 100% certain it wouldn't work, but there it is. And the thing is, I'm still going to be playing through the levels normally. Why? Well, let's not beat around the bush, I'm not actually that close to finishing this game. I still had a ton of hats and skystones to get, along with the warrior emblem for defeating enemies that I was nowhere near close to yet. So if I just used this trick to get the Nightmare emblem quickly, I would still have to go back and play the levels anyway. So I'm killing 2 chompies with 1 car here. I won't really go into detail about my Nightmare mode playthrough, blah blah blah, I have a video for that, blah blah blah. All I will say is that I did really well. I only died once in the entire playthrough compared to 14 deaths back in my last playthrough. And that 1 death was to the Darkness, who I probably could have beaten deathless if I was using the shield striker the whole way through. But still, I think I deserve a pat on the back for that one. I would like to give a shout out to Double Dare Trigger Happy and the Gold Rusher. I used them throughout the entire Nightmare playthrough as well as the land racing, and it made it very easy and enjoyable to get through. I've definitely gained some more respect for this guy, especially since I put him at a brutal 136th place in my ranking video. Sheesh, I feel bad now. Our next emblem is for completing all 10 elemental gates. After everything we've endured already, this is hardly much of a challenge. There's one of these gates for each element, which means you need a minimum of 10 vehicles. The game was doing so well with only needing 3 vehicles to 100% the story mode, but we've taken it a bit of a step up now. Also, if you do decide to complete the elemental gates in the actual levels, it will still count, so you can do it either way you want. So the elemental gates are just timed vehicle challenges with a free shield system? Yeah, I really don't know. The shields are achieved for completing the challenges within a certain amount of time. They don't actually count towards anything, simply completing the gate is all you need to do. But for completion's sake, you know we had to do them all properly. Once we do that, we're awarded with some legendary treasures, which we'll talk more about later, and also a lot, and I mean a lot of XP. So with all 30 shields, I'm so confused by that, we dust off this emblem. Next up are 2 emblems that we can only get using online play. That's when I found out that Serbian Skylands was also 100% completing the game. I needed these emblems as well. So even after his epic fail with the whole Winterfest Lobstar fiasco, I put that aside and we did the emblems together. Thank God we were both doing this for each other's emblems, because I don't think there was any amount of money that could convince anyone I know to do this with me. This was Skylanders' first real embark into the online world, and it is actually insanely cool. Not only can you race against friends online, but even play the entire game on co-op, which works incredibly well. One of the emblems is for completing 12 missions on online co-op, so we both decided to play the final chapter of Cloudbeaver's Crag over and over again until we got the emblem. Now for the second emblem, which you've probably guessed involves the online racing. You have to complete 30 races online. 30. After racing at least 75 times already. That's just something, isn't it? The added feature of playing against a real person is not enough to stop these extra races from feeling repetitive and soul draining. Plus, why 30 times when they know there's only 12 tracks in the game? It's like they're just trying to waste our time at this point. But we still got through it and collected up an extra 2 emblems. Now let's move on to the collectible side of the emblems. Firstly, we need to collect every hat in the game, which honestly wasn't difficult. I just kept buying things from the shop and kept using the wishing well until there wasn't any more hats to collect, and that's just how it was. And don't worry, I didn't have to transfer a single hat from a previous game this time. Up next is the emblem for collecting vehicle mods, and this one is very easy to complete because you need nowhere near every mod in the game. This meant I got the emblem without needing to do any extra work, but if you are still short on them, then the C section from the first level gets you mods pretty fast, plus it's right at the start of the third chapter. The final emblem to complete is for collecting all Skystones, Legendary Treasures, and Chaos Diaries. I never actually mentioned them before, but the Legendary Treasures in this game are pretty cool. You can place them down wherever you want in the hub world and interact with them in different silly ways. A lot of these are earned just by playing the game, but if you want the assembler you'll need every magic item because each one gives you a legendary treasure. Now Swap Force made damn sure I had every magic item, so I just added them all in no problem. For the Chaos Diaries you shouldn't have any problem getting them, just like the soul gems and the hats. Just use the wishing well in the shop and you'll have them all in no time. But the Sky Stones were slightly annoying. Every villain from Trap Team has a Sky Stone in this game, and the only way for us to get a Sky Stone for a villain is to place a trap in the portal while that villain is inside the trap. So long story short, I had to keep going back and forth transferring villains into Superchargers for their Sky Stones. Well, at least having multiple traps of the same element is helpful for this, but it still took a while and wasn't very fun. But after doing that we shouldn't have any more Sky Stones to collect. But we still do. This menu here is pretty useful because it shows you everything you've collected and what things you still need to get, and there is only one. Just one Skystone remaining. I've put the shop owner out of business. I've played against every Skystone NPC including Emperor Chaos himself, and I've just gotten all 46 of the villain Skystones, so what do I still need to do? Well, I found out that I was still missing the Darkness Skystone, and the way we get it is ridiculous. We have to talk to Tessa, who will give us random quests to complete for rewards, and there's a chance she'll give us a quest on the bandit train, and if we do this quest there is a very small chance that one of the areas has an NPC we can play Skystones with, and beating this NPC will give us the Skystone. Call me crazy for liking things to be straightforward, but this is just silly, and I cannot stress enough how long this took and how many times I had to play through this level. The worst part is Tessa only gives you 3 quests per day, so you can't even sit down and grind out this part of the game. All of that for a measly stone in a version of Skystones that I'm not even a big fan of. But who cares, because that was the very last emblem, we've completed them all. So, I'm free from this wretched curse. I'm free, right? Well, not quite, because just getting the emblems isn't quite enough. First of all, I mentioned that you don't need every mod for the emblem, but we still have to get every single one of them in the game. Getting all 162 of them is no easy task. I spent countless hours getting as many mods as I could, but once there were no more mods to find, but was still missing some, I was a little bit confused. After some investigating, I figured out that supercharging a vehicle with the corresponding Skylander unlocks 2 new supercharged parts for the vehicle, and these parts count as mods. So basically we need all 18 vehicles and all 18 superchargers to get all the mods in the game. Ouch. But once I figured that out, I got all 162 mods and can cross another thing off our list. But another thing I realised is that despite completing the Legendary Treasures emblem, the stats menu showed me that I was still missing 3 of them, and that's when it hit me. I didn't have Tiki Speaky, Rocket Ram or the Volcanic Vault. But after buying them with our very limited but remaining life savings, we seem to have completed everything there is to complete, so congrats to us. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Say hello to our not so good friend Buzz, because he's here to make our challenge just a little bit longer and a little bit more frustrating. If you talk to him as a supercharger in the hub world, he'll give you unique supercharger quests to complete. He has 3 different quests for each supercharger, and he even has full-on conversations with them. Once again, that's pretty creepy. Cool, but creepy. The first quest that Buzz gives your supercharger will be something to do with an attack or an ability. These range from super easy to hair-rippingly infuriating. Luckily the supercharger gate in Clock's HQ has infinitely respawning one-hit enemies, which makes some of these much less annoying. But Stealth Elf still managed to actually make me rage audibly, which I wasn't expecting. Anyways, the next quest for the supercharger will be in their vehicle. The majority of these are the exact same and just require you to attack a bunch of times. Just to save time, here are the 3 areas which are easiest for each terrain. For land, the test area is pretty good because you get 6 enemies at a time and none of them do any damage. For sea, I found the Vault of the Ancients to be the best. Not only is it a long mission with lots of enemies, but also lots of mines which for some reason count as enemies. For sky, the Land of the Undead is good because once again it's long with a lot of enemies. The Thump Truck was a bit annoying because it just doesn't work very well. I won't get into it because I just don't have the mental strength, but eventually I did manage to get it. There was one. Just one other vehicle that gave me hassle. And can you guess whose vehicle it was? So the Stealth Stinger requires you to evade enemies 50 times with its ability, but only when enemies are behind you ready to attack, and there are not enough instances where the enemies do this. I can recall maybe 3 missions where this happened and they were never frequent. Simply put, this quest would be absolutely dreadful if it weren't for the Monstrous Isles mission, because the Terror Shark tries to attack you every 10 seconds or so, which made this so much easier than it would have been. But it still took ages and was extremely boring. Remember when Stealth Elf was Steroid Elf? Remember when she carried me to victory so many times? What happened to you, man? And the final quest will be completing every Supercharger's Supercharger challenge. So we get this menu with each Supercharger's challenge, meaning once again, you'll need 18 Superchargers and their respective vehicles to fully complete this menu. Most people, understandably, won't see this as a worthy investment, because it's not. The game is way too short to excuse having this many vehicles when you only need 1 for each terrain. So, I guess these are a substitution for heroic challenges? Again? Come on guys, you're doing this every game, just bring back the real heroic challenges, please. These are essentially just like the elemental gates from before, and they're pretty easy, even getting 3 stars wasn't too bad. A couple of them were quite annoying, especially Splatstone, which asks way too much of me after everything I've already done. But for the most part, a laid back part of the game. So we're done. Brilliant. I'll just be leaving then. Except we have another game to do. And we're still not done with Superchargers. Right now you're probably wondering what else could there possibly be to do in this game. Was this thing here the whole time? Well, regardless of when it got here, it is the only thing left standing in our way, so let's get straight to it. So this robot pukes up chests which give you a bunch of random items that you can customize your vehicle with, and some of this stuff is actually pretty cool. You have different paint jobs, neon colours, shouts, and even toppers. Kevin. You can also get boosts, which do tons of different things to your vehicle's abilities, but these are bad for us. We don't want to be getting boosts instead of actual parts because they don't have any sort of collection value, unlike the other customizables. Speaking of which, how many of these are there to collect? Okay, that's more than I expected. You better hope you've been saving up your gear bits from the vehicle sections because it's the only currency you can use to purchase these chests. Unless you actually want to spend real money on this. Has a single person ever purchased one of these with money? Well, don't. It's stupid to do that when there's a specific section of the game that will earn us gear bits fast. Firstly, create a new save file and play through the very first vehicle section. Make sure to use the shield striker because the shield move attracts gear bits. When you complete the section, simply leave, delete the save file and play it again. You get just over 2,000 gear bits in 3 minutes, which honestly isn't great, but it's the best we've got to work with. This means just to buy the chest with the best value, which is a ridiculous price by the way, you have to grind for over 10 minutes. And that wouldn't be too bad if it weren't for the completely luck-based reward system. Not only can you get boosts like I said before, which are not helpful, but you can also get duplicates of parts you already have. This gets worse and worse the closer you get to having everything. There were a few good instances where I got no new parts from the chest, and that was pretty frustrating. Luckily you get a gear bit compensation for each duplicate you get, and while 800 gear bits doesn't seem that good, when you end up getting tons of duplicates in the same chest, you nearly earn back the gear bits that you spent. Even still, this without a doubt is the most time consuming, boring, repetitive, mentally draining thing we have endured in the entire series so far. And I wish I was joking, but this was such a horrible experience. I think I'm starting to realize why everyone has permanently forgotten this stuff exists. After a ridiculous amount of time spent driving on this stupid boring straight road, I finally got the chicken leg topper and finished the nightmare. All 15 vehicle sets, 15 art decos, 15 neon lights, 55 toppers, and 101 shouts. After all of that, I can safely say that I have definitely completed this game as much as humanly possible, and there is nothing left for me to do. Oh wait, step 3. Well, thankfully the trophies in this game are very easy to do. Of course, with all the stuff we've done already, there are very few trophies that we haven't already gotten. You need to do 10 Tesla quests, and after the Skystone shenanigans, I only needed to do one more quest. And during this quest, you won't believe this, I found the Skystone guy again. This game series just loves humiliating me. We also have to do 10 Hugo quests, which I haven't even mentioned until now because they are boring and lame and dumb. They literally just make you replay parts of levels that you've already been through. Not fun. There's a trophy for beating the game on Nightmare mode as always, and a couple other ones here and there, but honestly there's nothing else worth noting. So we are done with Superchargers. Next up is my personal favourite game in the entire series, Superchargers Racing. Oh wait, we're not playing this one. And just like that, we have reached the final obstacle in our challenge, Skylanders Imaginators. Similar to Trap Team, practically everything in this game goes towards a 100% save file, so step 2 doesn't really leave us with much to do. To achieve a 100% save file, there are 3 main requirements. The first is getting 3 stars on every level, including the 5 expansion pack levels and the 10 Sensei realms. The Sensei realms are like many levels which can only be unlocked by senses of the corresponding element, but we'll talk about them later. As usual, the 3-star system has your objectives, collectibles and dares. We're back to normal with the time goal and the enemy goal and all that jazz. Superchargers was a nice break from the regular system, but it's nice to have it back. Well, mostly back, because they've kind of massacred the collection star. There are no longer any story scrolls, legendary treasures, or winged sapphires. Of course, now there's a legendary selfie frame in each level, but as far as compensations go, this one is pretty terrible. The next requirement is the accolades. I'm never going to escape these things, am I? And the last one is collecting all 96 Imaginator sets. And for step 2, the only thing there is to do is to get all of the remaining Imaginator parts that aren't included in the sets. One thing that I'm pretty grateful for is that just like Superchargers, we do not have to 100% complete Imaginators on Nightmare mode. The only reason we ever need to do that is because of the Nightmare mode exclusive hat in each game. Now while there is an Imaginator set that you can only get by beating Nightmare mode, the Imaginator sets and parts are shared between all save files. This means we can just play through on Nightmare mode separately to get the set. Because I wasn't playing the whole game on Nightmare mode, I decided to reset all of my senseis to make it a little bit more challenging. So with all that said, let's hop into the first level. Like any first level, Cradle of Creation introduces us to a few new mechanics. Most importantly, we have the Imaginate chests scattered throughout the level which give you parts for your Imaginator. You can get these chests in a lot of different ways. They can be rewards for surviving a big fight or for finding a secret area. But you can also get chests added to your vault by doing things like earning stars, completing troll radios and egg rescue minigames, winning Creation Clash, uniting the 3 gems in puzzle locks, and so on. Don't worry, we'll cover all these things as we go along. All of the chests that you find lying around in levels, including these goofy chompy snail looking guys that you have to chase, will give you a random Imaginator part, and the chests will still be there if you replay the level, and they'll give you new parts just like how the mods work in Superchargers. But the chests that get put in your vault can only be earned once, so don't waste your time on things that you only get one chest from. By the way, I'm not opening any chests in the vault until the end of the playthrough, so we're gonna have a lot, and I mean a lot, to get through when the time comes. Of course, some of these parts will contribute to a themed Imaginator set. The sets that we absolutely need for 100% completion. So even though they're not required to get 3 stars on a level, it's essential that we get as many of these chests as possible. Okay, back to the level. We find our first Sensei shrine here, and they're pretty cool. There is one shrine for each of the 10 battle classes, and only senseis that have the matching battle class can activate them. This gives you a fun little cutscene for each sensei, and then gives that sensei their Sky Chi move. You can ignore the shrines and still get 3 stars, but you do get a special Imaginate chest for each sensei who completes their shrine. Later in the level we find the Battle Gong, which triggers a mini arena fight which ends with gold, XP and an Imaginate chest. What more could you ask for? Completing the Battle Gong is part of the Dare Star, and only senseis can activate them. But guess what? The sensei shrines and Battle Gongs are the only things in these levels which only a sensei can access. Wow, that's great guys. It seems like they've learned their lesson from Trap Team. Oh wait, never mind, because all the older scanners have been made significantly weaker than the new ones, making most of them basically unusable and not fun. Screw you Bob, we were so close to getting it right. The Doomlander fight at the end wasn't difficult, but with low level senseis it took quite a while to chip away at his health. But we did manage to take it out, which awards us with a pretty hefty Imaginate chest. The time run wasn't much of an issue and allowed me to grab some more Imaginate chests along the way. So without much effort we get our first 3-star level, and like I mentioned, each star we achieve rewards us with an Imaginate chest, which is a lovely bonus. Mushroom River introduces the Troll Radio and the Egg Rescue minigames. You'll find one of these each in every level from now on, so I don't know why they didn't just have them from the beginning of the game. The Egg Rescue minigames are weird and you can avoid them if you want, but the Troll Radio is quite interesting because not only is it part of the collection star, but it also gives you special Imaginate chests. They give you sound effects and different music that you can give your Imaginator, which is cool, but I would probably rather die than listen to my Imaginator make fart noises whenever it moves. Anyways, this level actually gave me a bit of bother. I'm happy to say that the stupid tradition of having an impossibly hard secret is kept with this game. If you for some reason feel like taking a dip in this waterfall, then you'll find the selfie frame. I have no words, this is actually impossible to see. And also annoyingly, I failed my first timed run despite using my Imaginator to shred through the Doomlander. This was probably due to using Aurora, who is really quick but way too weak without upgrades. And then I realised that this would definitely be my problem. Imaginators is a very combat heavy game, meaning that having weak senseis makes it very difficult to get through the levels fast. Regrettably, I decided to use my really overpowered Imaginator for the whole level and the time difference is crazy. I'm not proud of it, but I didn't have much of a choice. Scholarville is one of the longest levels in the game to 100% complete, especially with 2 bosses, like geez. But in terms of the secrets, nothing really stood out to me. As long as you check every door to see if it opens and use the cannons to go to both secret islands, then you'll have no trouble. This level does introduce another new mechanic, that being rail grinding. Most rail grinds throughout the game have these little golden pieces to collect, and if you get them all, you get an Imaginate chest put into the vault. But if you miss even one of them, then you'll get nothing. You can give yourself a second chance by falling off of the rail, which will then take you back a little bit, but this is only possible on a couple of them. Because of how long this level is, I really didn't want to fail in the timed run and be forced to play a third time. But still, I decided to step out of my comfort zone and not use my Imaginator. And as luck would have it, I actually did beat it first try, and it's all thanks to Taekwon Crow. I forgot how strong that guy is. Shellmont Shores was honestly a cakewalk. I just realised how weird that saying is. Anyway, that takes us on to Sky Fortress, which is a bit tricky with its secrets, but still not anything we can't handle. This level does take a step up with these vulture enemies, especially in the Battle Gong, which is in a ridiculously tight space. And the Doomlander exists too. But of course, the real star of this show is the guacamole monster. What on earth are we doing, Imagineers? It was only on this playthrough that I realised that the guacamole monster is technically meant to be stupid on purpose, to show that Chaos has a terrible imagination and doesn't really deserve the power of mind magic. So this boss does make more sense knowing that, but I still feel a little bit embarrassed to play this game whenever I see him. Sorry, it's just the truth. After I got rid of the abomination, I thought it would be nice to explore the hub world a little bit, and there's a couple of things we can do here to get some Imaginate chests. We've got the arena, which is pretty good fun. However, there's no stars to earn from this one, so you can completely ignore it if you want. It's just the one arena with no bonus gimmicks involved, just good old fighting and a good old Imaginate chest as a reward each time you win. There's also a bunch of books scattered across the hub world which you can return to Hugo for an Imaginate chest. Here, have them, I don't want them, nerd. We also have surprise attacks which trigger when you attack an enemy that's walking around the map. Defeating all of them will guarantee you a chest. They also don't last very long, and of course you'll get a good chunk of XP from it too. There's also rats looking around, and if you chase them they'll burrow into the ground and you can follow them underground to find secret caves. These often lead to chests as well, but if it's in the right area it'll lead you to a secret bonus level, that being the Rat Kingdom. I decided to check it out, and it's a cool little location which also provides us with some extra Imaginate parts which I will never refuse. Well, that was a nice little refreshment, let's get back on track. This is a pretty fun level which I underestimated a bit, because I missed 2 collectibles, and it was only after I grabbed both of them that I realised this level doesn't have a time goal. I'm not sure if this is a mistake from Toys for Bob, but I'm not complaining because once again you don't have to replay the entire level just because you missed collectibles, so that turned out quite well. And to make things weirder, the next level, Golden Arcade, doesn't have a time goal either. I will admit it makes a bit more sense to this level because it's definitely the most unorthodox level in the game. I mean, apart from the battle gong, you only fight a couple of enemies for the whole thing. Very weird. There are definitely some notable secrets in this one though, like how in the first turret section you can destroy the backdrop to reveal a chest, or how in the second turret section there's a small cave that you can open. I did miss this one the first time around, but that doesn't matter, because right now it's actually impossible to 100% complete this level. I'll tell you why later. Oh yeah, a bit random, but there's a little Sprocket tank minigame which I'm assuming gives you an exclusive Sprocket themed weapon. Or maybe it's just a crazy coincidence that I got a wrench from the chest, who knows.
Did someone say wrench?
So we sadly have to move on from the Golden Arcade without our 3 stars, but mark my words, I'll be back soon. Dragon Temple is like a mini oracle. It has 2 sections where we have to pick between 2 paths, meaning we can't get everything in one go. But ignoring the paths, there are some tricky secrets in this level with all the floating islands heading around. Oh yeah, we finally have the time goal again, but it may as well not be there because it's ridiculously easy. Even on my first run where I was deliberately taking my time to get all the secrets, I was still close to beating it. Because of this I was able to take the other 2 paths that I didn't go through in the first run, get all the things I needed from those paths, and still beat the time goal with ages to spare. Something quite interesting is that at the end of this level we unlock the Dragon Wings, which we can use to glide back down to the hub world. And there are some spots in the hub world and in previous levels where we can use the wings to discover new areas. If you have your head screwed on, you've probably guessed that this is why we couldn't beat the Golden Arcade on the first try. But now that we can fly to this secret area, we're finally done with this level. There's also a secret area in Scholarville, but it's kinda useless. Like, not even an Imaginate chest or anything. But now we come to every Imaginator player's worst nightmare, the cake part quests. Essentially we need to find 9 cake parts to build this stupid cake for chaos. You can find some of these cake parts lying around the hub world, but for the most part you'll have to play the arena fights or complete these mini levels assigned to you by PopFizz. On a normal playthrough these quests are extremely annoying. It just feels like filler content which completely destroys the game's pacing. But since we still have so many Imaginate parts to find, this gives us a great opportunity to open some more chests. It still wasn't great, but at least it did contribute to our 100%ing mission, so I'll give it that. So now we need to make this chaos cake in the abandoned amusement park. I'm just going to take a minute and ask myself, why the hell are we making the cake in an abandoned amusement park? There are quite a few secrets in this level to stay on top of. Make sure you enter both of these tunnels through the rotating doors, and also use these blocks to make a bridge over to this door. Oh, it doesn't open, never mind. I also accidentally fell and I spotted the secret drop off which leads to a room full of enemies, but bizarrely the only reward is a pile of gold. Please, I'm not even halfway through the 96 sets and you're giving me gold? And on top of that, this is the hardest level in the game in my opinion. The absolute spammage of rats in this area is a lot to deal with. At least there's this button in the middle which sends out an electric shockwave, so use that to your advantage. There's also another button later on that freezes enemies. I'm sure you'll need it against the terrifying swarm of 2-hit bug enemies. Scary. The quickshot Doomlander at the end of the level is without a doubt the hardest boss in the game. On Nightmare mode, I would consider this guy to be on the same level as some of the Doom Raiders, which is not an easy title to claim. Obviously we're playing on expert mode though, which made him a bit less dangerous. The Lair of Chaos is a very underwhelming final level, but credit where credit is due, it's one of the 2 Skylander games to actually have a full set of new enemies specifically for the final level. The other one of course being Swap Force. I'll tell you, Imaginators picks the weirdest moments to put effort into the game. In fact, one thing you need to respect about Imaginators is that every story level, apart from the Golden Arcade, has a completely new set of enemies without any being rehashed, and I think that's quite impressive. Back to the Lair of Chaos. The main disappointment with this level comes from how short it is and how easy it is to 100%. There is only one moderately interesting secret, and it comes from getting flung off the stage by one of Chaos's traps. But other than that, everything is easy, including the time goal, mainly because half of the Chaos clones can just be avoided. Some final challenge this was. And I wish I could say that Super Saiyan Chaos picks the level up a bit, but this is the worst final boss in the series, as long as you don't count Dream Sheep. Man, I hate that guy. Chaos just summons Doomlanders and creates shockwaves. He doesn't have any other moves, and it doesn't really progress in a satisfying way, which is something that Traptanium Chaos nails. Even though I have like 5 different PTSDs from different playthroughs of Trap Team, I still love him. So in quite an underwhelming fashion, we take down Chaos for the very last time in this challenge. Well, that's a lie, we still have Nightmare Mode to beat, but I thought it sounded quite dramatic and cool. So now that we've cleared the main story with all 30 stars achieved, it's time for the 5 expansion packs, and luckily these are some of the best levels the game has to offer. Enchanted Elven Forest is up first, and as long as you don't play like an idiot, you should get your 3 stars in one go without any issues. Why? Well, because the time goal is gone again. I don't know why they keep doing this to the time goal, because in all honesty, I wouldn't mind having to replay these levels, they are great fun. Griffin Park Observatory is next. Why does everyone hate this level? This is a universally disliked level and I never really understood why. Sure, the open world concept isn't executed perfectly, but it's still a fun and unique level. Basically, you have this observatory as a mini hub world. That's already a good start. And from the observatory, you can pick from 3 different mini levels to play in whatever order you want. This does make the level quite lengthy, especially if you're going for 3 stars, but there's no time goal, so take as long as you need. And if you think you've missed a collectible in one of the mini levels, don't worry, because once you've beaten the level, you can stay and go back to any of the areas without having to replay the entire thing. But it won't be easy because this level does have some pretty tough secrets, and with so much to do, it's quite overwhelming. One of the big things to look out for are torches, because some of the cave areas are too dark for you to even go into without one. There's also a bunch of secrets in the main hub area, like this Arboretum. I'm probably the first person to ever say that word ever, which you have to find a key for. This allows you to remove all the shrub obstacles from the level, which leads you to secret areas which don't have collectibles, but do have enemies, and if you don't defeat these enemies then you won't get the enemy goal because the enemy goal is incredibly strict. Okay, that is a lot. But if you take your time you will get through it, I promise. Thumping-Wumpa Islands is next. This level has its own unique collectible, that being the boom boxes, which is pretty cool, but the secrets overall are nothing interesting. I did find this to be one of the hardest levels in the game in terms of the fighting though. Even the chompies in this level are difficult due to biting twice consecutively, and it doesn't matter how many times I play this level, my brain just cannot fathom a chompy biting twice, it's completely insane. It doesn't help that Crash and Cortex, while really fun Skylanders, are definitely on the weaker side, but it's very important that you keep these 2 alive because they both have too many games in the level which only they can do. I got through Crash's chili runs no problem, and same with Cortex's bootleg Space Invaders. Doing well in these mini games rewards you with collectibles, which is the only reason that we have to bother with them. Oh yeah, the time goal decides to show up again in this level, so I literally blazed through with my Imaginator and got the 3 stars. Now here's where things get a bit more interesting because now we move on to the last 2 expansion packs, both infamous for being very hard to come by nowadays. These expansion levels aren't unlocked with a specific figurine, and instead with the senseis from their respective packs, Wildstorm and Robo. And while the same thing can be said for the Thumping-Wumpa Islands, not only can 2 different senseis unlock that level, but they're also figurines that were released on day 1 of Imaginators. These 2 were some of the final new Skylanders and therefore had a pretty small amount of figurines produced, especially due to Imaginators' lackluster sales. So where does that leave us? Homeless. These 2 were expensive, and I mean expensive. But we gotta do what we gotta do. So let's jump right into Cursed Tiki Temple, and I can say with certainty that no matter how good this level is, it could never be worth the price that I paid for it. But it is still a very fun level, so it could have been much more of a slap in the face than it was. With the addition of this level and the final one, came a bunch of new Imaginate parts and sets to collect. I don't know completely how it works, but if I were to guess, the new parts only become accessible when you unlock the levels, but you can access these new Imaginate parts from any chest in any level. Another thing to mention is that bizarrely there are a few chests in both of these levels that just straight up give you an entire set. You can only get these sets from these specific chests in these levels, and I think the reason why is because these levels only have 1 soul gem and 3 treasure chests each, so maybe they added these chests in to give the levels a bit more substance when it comes to collectibles. I counted 4 of these special chests in each level, and I sincerely hope that is the case and I didn't miss any. So let's actually talk about the level. One of the level's main ideas are these optical illusions that can only be figured out with the help of our friend Bob. Yeah, that's actually his name. So make sure you're checking all the walls in case there's any secrets hidden beyond them. Something I failed to do and missed the treasure chest because of it. But that's no problem because this level is actually quite tough. Even with Wildstorm, who's a strong sensei, I still died during the last enemy gauntlet before the end, so I had to replay the level anyway. Attempt 2 went better. I got the missing chest and got to the end without dying, but missed the time goal by quite a long way. So I brought out the old reliable and finally got 3 stars and hopefully found all the exclusive sets. Well, after beating Cursed Tiki Temple, we have officially completed 50% of the game. Yeah, it doesn't sound right to me either, but you'll see that the Imaginator sets and the accolades are going to take up a large bulk of our remaining time. So just one more expansion pack level to complete, and it's a little bit disappointing. If the Lost Imaginate Mines was just a regular level in the game, it would be totally passable and even pretty decent. But the fact that this is the final Skylanders level ever, and it looks identical to the first level with no new enemies to be seen, and it just copies the gimmick from Vault of the Ancients, well, it's a bit of a shame, no one can deny that. Especially when Robo is the rarer and more expensive of the two. Why do I make these financial decisions? Who is giving me money to do this stuff? At least it has a pretty good boss fight, and Blob was going sicko mode out of nowhere. Anyway, just like Kursiki Temple, there were a few sets to find, so keep an eye out for them. Other than that, you shouldn't have to be too alert for anything, especially since the last quarter of the level is basically just a straight road, so you shouldn't be missing anything from there. But even with the enemies being as fragile as glass and having no missed secrets to find, I was still shy of the timed goal on my second run. Probably because of the boss fight being quite chunky and Robo not being high enough level. I reckon if I went in again as Robo, I'd just be able to beat it, but just to be safe I used my quick shot and achieved 3 stars on our final level. Well, technically, but not really, since we still have 10 Sensei realms to get through. These are essentially elemental gates that have been turned into their own mini levels, each with the same 3-star system as the regular levels. While most of them are so easy that they aren't even worth mentioning, like the Tech realm where you make a toy and that's it, there are a few of them that aren't quite as simple, like the Fire realm, which has this chest that requires you to randomly jump over here for no apparent reason. This is probably the toughest secret in the game apart from that Mushroom River selfie frame. I just can't get over how evil that one is. So it's probably fair to go over some of the interesting Sensei realms. The Undead realm is quite cool because the layout, enemies and collectibles change when you replay it. This means that you probably can't 100% it first try unless you get super lucky. But after a couple of playthroughs you should definitely get everything you need. Also be careful of the enemy goal because it's very demanding. I'm not sure if this is a Moke and Mine situation where you have to keep these spell punks alive to spawn enemies, but I did it anyway just in case. I remember the Magic Realms maze section being tricky due to the time goal being quite short, but as long as you remember the layout on your first run you shouldn't have any trouble whatsoever. I had no trouble with the Life Realm either, but I wanted to point out that this is the best way to get money for your Skylander in this game. Like, you can fully upgrade your Sensei from scratch by playing it twice, it's pretty great. But anyways, that's what the Sensei realms and regular levels finished, giving us a total of 75 stars and our first requirement for our 100% save file completed. So now it's time for the dreaded accolades. These ones work very similar to the emblems and superchargers, with each accolade having 4 different tiers to complete, and also rewarding us with an Imaginate part for each one. While they are nowhere near as difficult as the ones in Swap Force, you'll still need to put some work in to achieve all of these. There's a few you should already have completed, like defeating Doomlanders, completing Battle Gongs, earning 3 stars on levels, and so on. But let's talk about the ones I had to go out of my way to complete. The first accolade we need to tackle is quite an interesting one, because it requires you to create an Imaginator of every battle class, with there being 10 different battle classes to choose from. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as just buying 9 more creation crystals online, because there is one major issue that I personally think is the scummiest thing Activision has ever done with this series. I'll just make it blunt, there is no in-game option to reset your Imaginator, which not only means you have to buy another crystal if you want to try out a different battle class, but it also means that if you buy a used crystal, you're forced to use the battle class that the previous owner chose, along with having an already leveled up Imaginator that you can't experience from scratch. Yes, this definitely sucks, but what does it have to do with the accolade? A lot. A whole lot. If you buy an Imaginator that has already been used, you will not be able to achieve this accolade, because you are technically not creating the Imaginator, you're just changing it from after it had already been created. This could have potentially ruined any chances of me 100%ing this game, as it's super unlikely to find unused creation crystals anymore, and the ones that exist are probably super expensive, if it weren't for one very simple exploit we can use to reset the crystals. All you need is either a copy of Spyro's Adventure on the 3DS, Giants on the 3DS, or Giants on the Wii, and of course a usable portal. In the 3DS games, simply try to use your Imaginator. When the game obviously detects that it's not a usable figurine, it will give you the option to reset all figurines on the portal. Now put as many creation crystals on the portal as you want and boom, you've just killed several Imaginators with the power of science. And with Giants on the Wii, it's pretty much the same thing, but you have to go into the settings on the main menu. What makes Giants on the Wii a little bit better is that you can also reset traps if you're using a trap team portal. But the villains already having their evolved forms doesn't stop us from completing anything in the game, so it's not a necessity. Because of this trick, if you only have one creation crystal, you can just keep resetting it and choosing a new battle class until you've done all 10. But since I had a crystal of each element anyway, I just did it the regular way. Next we have to display a selfie of each battle class in the selfie hall. I didn't mention this place earlier, because I really didn't want to, but essentially we need to take a selfie with a Sensei of each battle class and put them up on the wall. And you can take the selfies wherever you want, it doesn't have to be on the dedicated selfie spots. So this one wasn't a problem. Remember the real grind challenges from earlier? Well, they have their own accolades, so I really hope you went out of your way to do them. You have to complete all 8 of these in the game, you can't just repeat the same one over and over again, so you should definitely keep note of which ones you've done as you go along. But just in case you're clueless, there's 1 in Scholarville, 2 in Shelmont Shores, 1 in the Golden Arcade, 2 in the Enchanted Elven Forest, 1 in the Dark Realm, and 1 in the Magic Realm. You are welcome. Remember the totally optional egg claw minigames from earlier? Well, it turns out they definitely weren't optional because we get an accolade for completing 8 of them. Sorry about that. As a rule of thumb, if there's something in the game that seems optional, you should probably just do it anyway in case this kind of thing pops up. Speaking of which, I was wrong about the Sensei Shrines too, because we need to complete a bunch of these for an accolade. Oopsie daisies. We also need to unite gems and puzzle locks, but since there's the incentive of an Imaginate chest, I've been doing this for every puzzle lock anyway. I don't think it's like Swap Force where you have to do it for every puzzle lock in the game, but you can only unite gems once per puzzle, so I do hope you've been doing them as you go along. Another accolade is for beating every Creation Clash NPC in the game, and the only level without one is the very first. Oh yeah, I actually forgot to talk about Creation Clash, probably because it's kinda lame. You don't even get to choose your Sky Stones this time, they just give you random ones at the start of each match. The game itself is super fun because it's so similar to the Sky Stones in Giants, but the collection aspect is completely thrown out the window, which does suck. Anyways, just head back to the previous levels and beat all of them. It shouldn't be much of a problem. This does also include the 5 expansion pack levels, so if you don't have those, I have some bad news for you. You only have 4 days to live now, and you also can't complete that accolade. Our next accolade is completing Superchargers races. Like I haven't done enough of that already. Yeah, bizarrely you can do racing in this game. Well, I'm not going into any sort of detail on this. As expected, I breezed through the land races. But because the sea and sky races are a lot more luck based since you can't really avoid getting damaged as much, I decided to use the villain trophies and just blasted through as Mesmeralda and Chaos. One thing that is worth mentioning is that in Imaginators you can actually play it on all 12 tracks without the trophies. And it is the exact same as the racing in Superchargers, so if you want to try out the tracks, don't bother buying the trophies, just play Imaginators instead. After doing all of that, I was super close to getting the Imaginator set accolade, so I just went into the secret well a couple of times, which gives you 2 chests each time you blow it up, and did a couple of surprise attacks too, and that was enough to complete our 16th and final accolade. So that leaves only one more requirement for 100% completion, that being collecting all 96 sets, and heads up, it's gonna be the least enjoyable part of the game, so just prepare yourself. So starting this step, I was still nowhere near 96 sets, and I was not happy about that because I feel like I should have way more of them by now. It turns out that there are quite a few sets in this game that are only found in specific levels or from completing specific tasks, so let's get them out of the way first. Let's start with the easiest one, that being a set you can only find in the Rat Kingdom. You'll have to play through the level multiple times to get this set because there's not enough chests in the level to get the whole set first try. As you might remember, I already went here earlier in the game, so I only had to play through it again once. The next one really took me by surprise. It's a set that can only be collected in the Sensei Tech realm, and it's not just by playing through and finding Imaginate chests like the Rat Kingdom. Oh no. To get the exclusive set, we need to create all 27 toy combinations. And no, you can't just repeat the same combo, it needs to be a new one every time. Well, I seriously regret underestimating this level because it's come back to bite me in the ass. You'll be rewarded with parts other than just the ones in the set too, but I don't think those are exclusive to this level, they're just a bonus. It feels like all of these later games have at least one annoying repetitive post-game segment that I did not enjoy doing, and trust me, this is no exception. It's especially annoying when some toy combinations just decide to not give you a chest. I can't complain too much though, it didn't take me too long, it was just super boring. I even had to create a spreadsheet to keep track of which combinations I still had to do. That's how bad it got. So after about an hour of pain, I finally created my 27th toy and completed the Imaginator set. That was very evil of you Imaginators, very evil indeed. But hey, as long as we get one step closer to finishing this game off, then I'm happy. The next group of sets are a little bit pricey. Each creation crystal of a different element you place down unlocks an Imaginator set, and there is no other way to obtain these 10 sets than with the creation crystals. So even though you can get away with only using one creation crystal for the battle class accolade, you'll definitely need one of every element to get these sets. But don't worry because you don't actually need to reset these crystals. Even an already used crystal will still award you with the set, which is a nice change of pace. The last exclusive set is the one that we can only get by beating the game on Nightmare mode. But I was looking forward to this because it gave me tons of opportunities to get Imaginate chests, something I need desperately at this point in the game. As long as it wasn't too far out of the way, I tried to grab the chests in secret areas just so I had less parts and sets to deal with by the end of the playthrough. Just like the other games, I'm not going to go into detail of the Nightmare mode. You know where to go if you want to see that. One thing to mention though is that I decided to use some of my new Imaginators and they are actually great fun. I've definitely grown to appreciate this gimmick a bit more now that I've actually given it a chance, and it is pretty cool. However, nothing compares to the Senseis, so I eventually just went back to using them instead. And soon enough, we took down Chaos and got the exclusive set. But sadly, even after all of the extra chests we were able to get, I still had a ton of parts to grab and sets to complete. That's when I remembered that I had literally over 100 chests waiting to be opened in the vault. And while it took a solid 20 minutes to actually get through them all, it was an incredibly massive help. I mean, obviously, but still. However, not even that was enough to get us everything, and that left us with only one option. Grinding for chests until we eventually complete all the sets. There may be other methods out there, but as far as I know I was using the best one there was, and that is the Undead Realm. After you get all the collectibles in this level, they get replaced with Imaginate chests, giving you 3 of them at the end, plus 1 near the start of the level. Since it's such a fast one to complete, you're getting a lot of chests in a very short amount of time, which is exactly what I needed. I mean, it's not perfect or anything, I still had to play through a lot of times, especially with the possibility of getting duplicates. But it could have been a lot worse, so I was pretty grateful. Eventually I completed every set that I could possibly complete. So why are we still missing so many? Well, you can thank the blue Imaginate chests for that. Both the Imaginate Mines and Tiki Temple packs come with 1 each, and upon placing them down you are given tons and tons of weapons and Imaginator parts. Both of these chests give you a bunch of exclusive sets, so you do need them to 100% the game. Unfortunately, just like Robo and Wildstorm, these blue chests are hard to come by. But I got all of that sorted out and I placed the blue chest down, which means we finally have every set and the save file is 100% complete. Look at the stars coming out of it. That actually might be the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Wait, the stars are that the entire time? Oh. Now as I mentioned earlier, there is only one thing that I would consider to be step 2, and it's getting all of the Imaginator parts that aren't included in sets. But because of all the grinding I did in the Undead Realm, I had already gotten everything there was to get, so there's really nothing else to do. But it is worth mentioning that there are 2 real things here that could stop you from getting every part. Firstly, there's Imaginate chests spread through the hub world that give you exclusive auras. If you haven't found those specific chests already, then there is no way you'll have those parts. Secondly are the 2 parts you unlock from each sensei. Whenever you place a new sensei down, they'll increase your Imaginator's level cap, and also reward you with an Imaginator part which is exclusively from that sensei. The other part from that sensei is rewarded to you when you complete their sensei shrine. So make sure you've unlocked every Sensei Sky Chi as a way of knowing which parts you still need. Or you can just go into the character creator menu and it will tell you specifically which ones you're missing. Now yes, needing all 31 Senseis for this is pretty brutal, but at least we didn't need them all for the actual 100% completion. Swap Force would probably have a stroke if it found out about that. So with all 75 level stars, all 16 accolades, and all 96 Imaginator sets completed, plus every part collected in the whole game, we are officially done with the Imaginators nonsense. We've collected 160 heads, 16 eyes, 69 ears, 110 chests, 74 arms, 84 legs, 42 tails, 15 tassets, 15 swashbuckler tails, 150 headgears, 104 shoulder guards, 74 arm guards, 50 leg guards, 62 backpacks, 21 auras, 10 voices, 10 music tracks, 12 sound effects, and 311 weapons, resulting in a total of 1,389 different Imaginator parts. Oh my actual god, how did we manage to get all of this before dying of old age? Needless to say, I don't want to see another Imaginate chest in my life. We've done a lot and we've done well. We're in the final home stretch of the challenge now, so let's get on to step 3. A little fun fact I know is that you can actually achieve the Platinum Trophy in this game with only what comes in the starter pack, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, just like usual, you'll unlock most of these trophies without really meaning to, but there are a good few of these that you'll have to go out of your way to do. Each level has a bonus trophy, which I always thought was a cool idea. I think Swap Force and Superchargers should have done the same thing. Anyway, some of these did give me quite a challenge. Firstly, we have the Mushroom River trophy. This requires you to get on a raft with a Raptor, but then jump off the raft, leaving him to dwell in his loneliness. This one obviously isn't hard, but it's pretty funny. Shellmont Shores requires you to eat a bunch of bananas, so keep your eyes peeled for that. The Sky Fortress trophy is the most annoying thing in the game, I'm just gonna be honest. You need to destroy every box during this Wrecking Ball segment without letting any of them fly off the platform, even though there are explosive crates that, well, create an explosion. And you have to do all of this in a strict time limit so it doesn't even feel like you can do it carefully. Essentially, if you hit a TNT crate, you lose and have to restart. At least you can restart when the time runs out, but this still feels quite unfair. It was only later that I realised that you can actually let the boxes fly off the side. All you have to do is make sure that the last box left is an explosive one. After I figured that out, it became a lot easier. And I felt a little bit stupid, but it isn't the first time and it won't be the last, so whatever. The Dragon Temple trophy is quite interesting and stumped me for years, but it's about time we put this one to rest. During the final section when you're gliding back down to the hub world, you need to land on every single island. This takes some serious brain power, which by this point I was pretty low on. But as long as you take your time and plan your route correctly, you should get that trophy. The Lair of Chaos trophy was another one I was struggling with because I was doing it wrong. The whole time I thought the idea was to reach the end of the level with a higher score than Chaos. Oh yeah, I didn't actually mention this before, did I? For some bizarre reason, Chaos puts you into a game show where you get points for killing enemies and he gets points when you activate his traps. Well, it turns out that the final area of this level has infinite infinite enemies, which I had no idea about. As long as you don't complete the crystal beam puzzle, you can just keep defeating enemies until you score so many points that the board breaks, awarding you with the trophy. It does take a while because the enemies spawn at a snail's pace, but when Jetpack's robots show up, they start spawning in faster for some reason. So this leaves us with one more trophy, and I saved the most boring one for last. Yay. All you need to do is complete a bunch of these post-game mini levels, and I'm not entirely sure if the cake part quests also count towards these trophies, but if they don't, it won't take you too long anyway. Just talk to the brain and he'll tell you which levels you can do. So that's all we need to do to get the platinum trophy and 1,000,000% complete Imaginators. Imaginators was not as simple as I was anticipating. The post-game lasted for just as long as the main story, which I was not expecting at all. But with Imaginators done, we have finished this challenge. Mostly successful too. If we ignore that one silly accolade and 4 silly hats in Spyro's Adventure, along with that equally silly trophy in Swap Force, then we smashed it out of the park with absolutely everything being completed in the entire mainline series. It's hard to believe that I've actually done it. After 13 years of playing Skylanders, I can finally say that I fully completed each of these games to the best of my ability. But before I go, just for fun, let's rank these games on how difficult they were to 100% complete. The easiest was obviously Spyro's Adventure. Most of the secrets aren't really even secrets, and it didn't really offer any challenge apart from the final couple of bosses. There were some tough achievements and a couple of glitches did get in our way, but apart from that it was very smooth sailing. Next I'm gonna have to go with Imaginators. This one was probably the second quickest to complete, with the levels being on the shorter side and only missing a couple of collectibles throughout the whole run. The grinding for Imaginate chests and the toy making was definitely a pain, but I can safely say that I've been through worse. If I was ranking the games on how expensive they were, then Imaginators would obviously be way higher, but it was a relatively stress-free and fun game to complete, and I'm grateful for that. Giants goes here because besides the Sky Stones, it doesn't have a lot of boring repetition like the other games, but the game itself is difficult. I've always struggled the most with Giants, especially on Nightmare mode, so just beating the levels without dying, let alone getting the time goals, was a big challenge that took a while for me to overcome. But when I managed to get through it all, I was very happy and satisfied with the game as a whole. There are some aspects of Superchargers that I found incredibly easy to complete, but there is a lot, and I mean a lot of pain and agony to endure. If I ever see that robot again, I'm gonna gouge my eyes out, I swear by it. Its difficulty comes from how long it takes and how much there is to do, rather than actually being difficult. But I did complete it with a smile on my face, so that's something at least. Now it was close between Superchargers and Trap Team, but this one takes the second spot for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it has nearly the same amount of repetition as Superchargers, but the game itself is a lot more difficult. From the secret 4th star on every level, to the Chaos Doom challenges, to having to transfer all of the hats, Trap Team was a much taller order than anticipated, and that made it one of the toughest games to complete. But of course, none of them come close to the only entry left, and is anyone shocked right now? Swap Force is not only the longest, but also the most tedious game to 100% complete by a landslide. The super long levels that you have to replay fully if you miss a secret, all of the extra content, the ridiculous amount of Skylanders that I had to buy just to get some stupid accolades, it's all just a bit much to be honest. I definitely don't recommend this challenge to the faint of heart. I'm being serious when I say that in the grand scheme of video games as a whole, this must be one of the most painful to 100% complete. Very few people have done it, and I don't see anyone doing it in the future. I mean, it's also kinda technically impossible to complete because of that stupid signpost, so I think Swap Force deserves this spot for that reason alone. Well, I guess that's about it then. The challenge finished. I was kinda hoping it would last forever, to be honest. Even the boring parts were really fun in a weird way, and I kinda already miss it. Well, thank you for joining me on this adventure. It's a bit bittersweet, isn't it? I probably will never experience new Skylanders content again in my life. Well, thank God I didn't break this. If you're still here, I just wanted to actually show you, like, how much of this I've got. It's like, how do I actually have this much stuff? It's